Ask them.
Hear me, all you hosts gathered here.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit.
Well, I think we're about ready. Quiet, everyone.
Filth are my politics. Filth is my life.
From the whispers of the damned, deep within the bowels of hell. Welcome to Astro Radio Z.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for waiting on us tonight. This is a brand new thing. I've never done this before. This is our new way of doing Astro Radio Z live. As you can see, I'm full dorked out tonight. I'm ready for the occasion. This has been an event years in the making, years upon years in the making. And of course, I wasn't going to do this half-assed. I had to dork it out. And I had to bring on my good bud, Vaughn, who you guys should all know from the Andy Milligan episodes. Welcome in, my dear, dear friend, Mr. Vaughn. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's been a while since I've seen you. And you're sporting the one-of-a-kind Ass Monster podcast shirt. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, I had to wear it. Yeah.
Boy, that podcast sure didn't last very long, did it?
Yeah. He's still making movies, but you ain't doing podcasts on it anymore.
No, fuck that shit. Why the hell would I? As I've said many times on both, the Patreon and here on the podcast, I've met Bill Zabub quite a number of times, and he's always been an extremely nice dude, but fuck his movies.
Yep. Fuck his movies and fuck him, even though he's extremely nice.
But tonight, that is not what we're going to be talking about.
Thank God.
No more, no more homophobic content, rape, and all sorts of other misogynistic bullshit and racism, which are prevalent in all of those goddamn gimmicks. Tonight, Vaughn, I don't know how much of a Friday the 13th man you are, but
I've seen them all. I can talk about it.
You can talk about it. Are you a fan?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Out of the main core three, it's number two. Michael Myers is probably the number one. But I think out of the three, Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers, I think the whole Jason Voorhees kind of pantheon of films is much better than the other two combined, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I've been since I was a little kid. I think the first one of the first slashers I ever saw was Slumber Party Massacre. I remember going to my bud's house. He had a grungy ass tape. He led me into his bedroom with a fucking VCR. We were hey, settle down here, Vaughn. I was only like fucking 12. There were no nefarious things happening in this. But that was the first one. The second one I watched was Friday the 13th Part 2, and that was at another birthday sleepover. And man, that movie changed my life going forward. I had to seek out every single last goddamn Friday the 13th film, every single last horror movie in general. So there are just a few movies out there in my life that I would attribute to me becoming this stupid horror fan that I've been my entire life. And Friday the 13th Part 2, Slumber Party Massacre, Todd Browning's Dracula. That would be it.
I get you there. Like, my first Friday the 13th film was probably Takes Manhattan.
Interesting.
Because it was just, it was on the shelf. And I think, if I remember correctly, one of my cousins was renting tapes all the time. And, we were always there on like Friday nights or something like that because my parents and for some odd reason, my father always thought it was a good idea to still spend time with his brothers. Now that he's realized that was a bad idea. And so they would always be watching something weird. And, you're a little kid. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. And I just remember that such vividly. And I was like, there's parts of it, like the whole, him walking through New York, kicking the fucking boombox and the showing the punks the face without, we seeing what it actually looks like. That I remember so well. When I see it now, I'm like, oh my God, it just completely brings me back sitting there going, yeah, I'm way too young for this bullshit. I shouldn't be watching this. No.
Oh, my parents and my family actively encouraged it for some unknown reason. I think I told this story on an episode in the past where my uncle, I had begged him forever to rent me Demons, and I was way too young to watch that fucking movie. And he rented it, and I remember being at his apartment. We rented it and watched it, and I was like, what the fuck did you just do?
Fuck.
Because you imagine when you're a kid looking at those VHS boxes, you imagine what's going to be in that movie. And Demons, of course, has that demon coming out of the person's back, and people getting their faces scratched off. And was it Terror in the Aisles that had clips of demons in it?
If I remember correctly, I just saw that a couple years ago. Yeah, I think that's in there. There's a bunch of fucking films in that film.
Yeah, and that was a gateway drug in a lot of ways to a lot of Italian cinema. I know I wouldn't know anything about Dario Argento if it wasn't for fucking Terror in the Aisles.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what we're going to be doing tonight. Vaughn, do you know how these stupid tier lists work?
I've seen a couple of videos on this. So what are you ranking? Is it like S to?
Should we bring this up so we can see what this is? I'm going to tuck the chat away for a little bit here, so we can do this properly. And let's bring up not me. I don't want myself that big. What the fuck? There we go.
There you go.
Here's the tier.
Yes. Okay.
This is what we're going to be trying to accomplish tonight on this tier list that was made. S tier usually is the top, but they call it elite.
Right.
On this one. So elite is obviously the best shit possible.
Yes.
Then A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. And I don't know what NA means. All these movies are applicable.
I guess not available? Like what is that?
Yeah, I don't quite understand what that gimmick is. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Can we just that? Yeah, we can. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, get rid of it.
Let's delete it. Let's actually. Can we edit label? Work some of these. Let's see if we can do it. This is going to be the dog shit tier. Not dog shirt. So it's elite, A, B, C, and then dog shit.
Dog shit. Okay.
I'm not actually any legitimate dog shit movies in this series, but I mean,
no. Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, no. I think there's a couple that are kind of really weak, but yeah, not in that where you're like, no, fuck that. Like that's the thing. Like that's what I was saying. Is like this whole film series is actually pretty good. Even the bad ones are kind of somewhat enjoyable to a point, you know. But like, yeah, like you look at the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and it's like, yeah, or even the Michael Myers films, it's like, oh yeah, it's like, oh fucking hell. There's some real dumpers in that film series.
Oh man, so dumpers in Halloween. We'll do Halloween another time. Maybe down the road we'll do. Maybe in the 31 days in October we'll do a Halloween tier list episode. I think that's a good time for that because I think last year, I don't know. It's every couple of years I rewatch the entire series for some unknown fucking reason. If I do that ever again, I'm gonna skip those last three. Those last three are real fucking bad.
I still haven't watched the very last one yet.
Don't.
I watched the other two and just disgust and like my girlfriend wants to watch it, but like we just haven't made time to do it.
Well,
and I'm kind of happy about that.
Well, let me tell you, Vaughn. Halloween Ends will immediately go in the dog shit tier. There's no doubt about it. No doubt in my mind. That's in the dog shit tier. But we are not talking about those.
Yes, let's not talk about that.
That is not it. So, without further ado, let's get down and we'll do some talking about each of these movies. We're not going to just rush this thing through. This is the proper fucking episode. The first episode of Astro Radios. Why do I keep trying to say Rastro? I'm not fucking Shaggy or goddamn Scooby-Doo here. This is going to be new for me, Vaughn, because I usually see these episodes very highly. Very highly. Not this one.
Oh, I know.
These are just so. Without further ado, first movie we're going to be talking about is, if this thing will come up, Friday the 13th, the original.
Whoa.
A lot of people consider this the OG, the classic, the greatest Friday the 13th film of all time. I wouldn't put it in that ranking. Obviously, if none of you are aware, this movie came out way back in the day, and it started a revolution of similar films. It's not, the first slasher that ever was put out there.
No.
Halloween was out there, but way before that. Twitch of the Death Nerve, could be labeled as maybe one of the first. Psycho is usually, pointed towards as like the first slasher.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Vaughn?
I think it, like you said, it started as part of the genre. It's one of those films that a ton of people kind of aped on with kids, camping in the woods. And there's a bunch of films that I really enjoy that are, pretty much just a madman stuck in the woods. But without Friday the 13th, the first film anyway, you wouldn't have a lot of those films because it was just no one ever thought of let's put a bunch of people in the woods in cabins and fucking have a madman running around killing people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So with the first film,
spoilers,
everybody, Jason Voorhees isn't really a piece of this film. If you're listening to my fucking podcast, you don't know that already. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah. So it's more of a whodunit. There are some very inventive kills. I actually didn't appreciate this movie until way later in life because I finally saw it in a movie theater for the first time. And that experience changed the way that I saw fucking.
It doesn't it though? Like you go back, you watch these films all your life on tape and on freaking like Laserdisc and every format that's come out, you always keep going back to the same films, right? And then you finally get to see it in the theater, and it changes. Even if you love the film, it makes you love the film even more when you get to see it at a big screen. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and it's also the energy of the crowd. That's what really changed it for me. That was the first time because for the most part, I always kind of thought the first Friday the 13th was kind of dull. It's really slow. It's not shot very well. The music just kind of comes and goes out of nowhere. There's certain scenes like the final death scene where spoilers, everyone. And I wish I'm going to have to start getting my sound cues in here for the boarding house spoiler music. I don't know how I'm going to get that. I'm going to have to switch the avenue to get all my gimmicks on here. But anyways, when Pamela Voorhees gets her head chopped off, you see the goddamn toothpicks hanging out of the neck. All that shit. So, I mean, it is what it is. Oh my God, my fucking sound cues are going off.
Are they?
Oh, did you hear that?
No,
I heard it. Jesus Christ.
Oh, good.
Oh, I'm gonna turn that shit off. My fucking Twitch sound cues. Goddamn. Hail to the villainous. If this is gonna, people that are listening to this in audio form won't fucking understand this whatsoever on my Twitch channel. When I do regular video game streams, I have a bunch of sound cues people could.
Oh yeah, I've listened, I've watched those before and had those things going off while I'm sitting there trying to pay attention to you getting your ass kicked with Laura Croft.
Yeah, that's usually what happens.
What the fuck's going on?
That's usually what happens. But anyways, back to this. Friday the 13th. Until I sat in on a crowd and got the vibe of that movie with a crowd, and it became this really fun movie, and I finally understood why it became a sensation. It's a definite crowd movie, and it works in that capacity. There's lulls, then it builds up, and then there's release. Builds up and release. So I appreciate this movie way more, and I actually watch it a lot more than I used to.
Sure.
So what would you rank this at?
I mean, just because it's the OG, but I think there are definitely better films in the series that, but definitely, was it A tier? I guess it would be considered an A tier film because it's definitely, it marked a good part in the horror genre to kind of, put it out there. And then like I said, there's stuff like Mad Men or The Burning, or even Don't Go in the Woods Alone, which I know a lot of people scoff at, but those kind of films, it wouldn't have been out there if we didn't have this film come out first.
Absolutely. Same with Sleepaway Camp.
Sleepaway Camp.
There's so much of Sleepaway Camp that is directly ripped out of fucking Friday the 13th, the original textbook. I'm caught between A and B tier. I'm right
Okay.
on the fence because I think I agree with you. I mean, it needs its respect as what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but is it really compared to the rest of the films as good as those, or is it kind of middle of the road?
You know what? I also have to kind of like compare it like with Tom Savini's work. You know, the effects work in the film. You know, the thing that he was trying to do at the time with the practically being a guy who was kind of remaking the ideas of what practical effects were at the time. So I have to kind of put it up around A tier for that too.
Yeah, it looks like the chat
Um,
right now is also agreeing with you. 18.
yeah.
I think I'm going to go with
Mhm.
you on this. You
Okay.
guys have convinced me. Let's go 8
Nice. Good
on
job,
Friday the
guys.
13th, the original.
Mhm.
So let's move on.
Hmm?
Got Friday the 13th Part 2, which is the introduction of Jason Voorhees.
Yep.
This is where basically the franchise really starts. I mean, the first film's kind of an anomaly compared to the rest
Sure.
of it, because then
Mhm.
Jason is at the helm and we don't ever see any other family members. We never see anything else. Yes, chat, there's no mask yet. Everybody knows this is potato bag sack Jason.
Yep. Mhm.
And I know my partner, I talked to her about this. We were going to do this. This is her favorite one of the entire
Really?
series.
Really?
This is, like I said before, this is the first Friday the 13th film I ever watched.
Sure.
The kills are
Mhm.
ramped up, but
Well, like the introduction where it's just like we get introduced to the survivor from the first one, and she pretty much just gets killed within the first act, and you're like, okay, like let's do that. Let's just go for it. Let's do like a switcheroo. It's like you kind of think, oh, we're gonna follow her story. No, we're gonna just fucking end it right there.
yeah, that's the whole like Ripley and
Mhm.
Alien 3
Yeah,
beginning,
definitely.
right? This is
Like Adrienne King is such a good actress. Like in the first one, you can understand why they kind of kept her, like she was the main person out of that whole cast
yeah.
that was kind of like left there. And then when you bring her into the second film, you're like, okay, cool. Like she's there, she's there, and then when she gets she gets killed off, you're like, fuck, that's like it's awesome because it's such a shock.
Yeah.
And then it goes right to the rest of the film, and you get introduced to this new killer and this whole new thing where he just pretty much goes back home, and he's just like this kind of entity in the woods, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
like that he's like this hillbilly hick guy that's running around the woods and
Yeah.
has this dilapidated shack that he's built out
Right.
in the middle
Yeah,
of the woods.
there's more mythology going
Yeah.
on in this film. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they are building lore, but at the
Mhm.
same time, the controversy of this movie,
Yeah.
most of I won't say most of the deaths. There is a number of things ripped directly out of Bay of Blood in this movie.
Sure. Mhm.
Obviously, the skewering with the two people that just got done
Yep.
fucking, like shot for shot out of that
Yeah,
fucking
yeah, yeah.
movie.
Mhm.
And some other things. How do you feel about the inclusion of that kind of stuff? Do you think it's an homage to that film, or is it just like they're betting on nobody has ever seen that movie?
Like I don't think it was as like you look at a film a film watcher nowadays, a person especially who likes to watch horror movies, they will be automatically like they can compare and contrast to both films because it's so more easily accessible. Bava's films are kind of a little more, you have to be kind of like in there and be like, all right, I've seen this stuff, I would love to like try to reproduce it with more money and a better quality. But it's I can kind of see the homage to it, but like I said, like I like the fact that it brings with this film, it kind of it creates more of a story of more of a lineage of the character, kind of get more mythology to it in this film, which kind of gets I can't say it gets wiped away, but it definitely, like, this is where the film where it's like later films like Freddy versus Jason will take kind of heavily from stuff that's kind of in this film, um, and some of the other films. But yeah, I can kind of understand where people kind of like go like, but the murders are just pretty much ripping right. We're kind of pulling a Tarantino
Yeah.
with Reservoir Dogs on this film. So yeah, I can kind of agree with that too.
I never have been too down because I mean, a lot of horror is referencing other films all the time.
Sure.
It's a very
Yeah.
incestuous genre.
Yes.
So, I mean, Freddy versus Jason, to go on, not to jump ahead, but to go on what you had just said, they were playing fast and loose with the lore all over the place in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Since when is Jason afraid of fucking water?
Yeah, when we get to that one, I can't wait to discuss that fucking crazy, stupid shit.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But regardless, all of the counselors in this are relatable, and I like them all. They're not actors. Obviously, there's no Kevin Bacon in this one compared to Friday the 13th Part 1.
Yeah.
And it's pretty bloody. I like the look of Jason when the potato sack gets ripped off. All around solid movie. I'm going solid A tier on this. What do you think?
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Yeah.
Like I like the big shock at the ending when you have him diving through the friggin', through that window, pulling the people that our hero went out through the window at the very end, and you're like, fuck, okay. It's like, shit, okay, that's fucked up. Yeah, and like his whole look, like I like the fact that like they try to ape from the first film with that weird dream sequence at the end with the child coming out of the water, and we hear from his mother that her son Jason was not like the rest of the kids. He was kind of, he had some kind of defect. So when we get him in this film, he actually, when the sack gets ripped off, you see that he's actually kind of a deformed kind of, he has some kind of defect going on with him. So that's why she took it so seriously when he died. Like, and then the fact that he's just been sitting in the woods waiting and watching his mother get killed. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But yes, I can definitely tell it. Yeah, definitely put it as an A.
Well, as our chat says, Silhouetted Animator brings up the fact that Nightmare on Elm Street ended that way as well. I think that trend started with Carrie. The whole jump out of nowhere scare at the end.
The hand.
It's been widely known that Sean Cunningham used that in the first Friday the 13th purposely because of Carrie. So I'm sure Steve Miner, when he was pointed at to direct this one, he wanted to continue that tradition. So that's a great scare. I think this one works way better than Friday 13th Part 1. You can see the one in Friday 13th Part 1 coming 1.5 million fucking miles away.
Sure. Yeah.
And unfortunately,
it's kind of like an afterthought. I think, even if I remember correctly, I think Cunningham, they were like, let's just do one more shot, and like and they had, and friggin', and Savini kind of worked it all out. Like they brought a kid in who we all know now who's, oh God.
Do we need to talk about Ari Lehman?
No, we don't.
What about his band First Jason?
Hey, I'm not against it, man. I like listening to like weird fucking calypso jazz done with horror themes. I'm not against it, but like, I mean, that's a man who's like lived off that one scene for way too long. Like, you always think about when you see people like Virgil, when you see Virgil at conventions, you're like, how do you still making money on this gimmick? And it's like, that's the same thing with him. It's like, holy cow, you're still making money on this. I mean, I applaud him.
Yeah, good for him.
Like, yeah,
get that fucking paper, son. But for real, nobody wants to see your band where you're playing guitar that's shaped like a machete, singing about songs about that 1 10-second scene that you were in Friday 13 Part 1. Bless your heart, Ari Lee.
Yeah, damn right.
But for real, Silhouetted Animator. Steve Miner was the guy who directed that shitty Day of the Dead remake. That's all we'll say about that fucking gimmick.
Yeah,
I don't want to find. That's for another day. We're not going to.
Definitely.
So anyway, so are we in agreement? We're doing solid A tier on Friday 13th Part 2?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So this is where we may start to diverge.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, come on. This is all so new for me. All right, there we go. Friday 13th Part 3 in. Did you ever see this in 3D?
When the Blu-ray came out, yes, but I didn't see it in the theaters. No.
With the Blu-ray, did they have the red and blues?
Yeah, it's polarized. I think when the 4K came out, they kind of released one that was like, set for like No, they did two. They did like I think it was two. It was a two set where it was like one was like set for 3D TVs where you didn't need the camera, and then they gave you ones with the little with the little lenses. You know, the little and that's when I saw it, and I was like, oh, this is a cool gimmick. But I was like, I don't know if I was never a big fan of the whole 3D thing.
I like 3D movies when they're done right. Red and blues though give me migraines. I can't fucking deal with that shit because I remember I was so hyped to see this when it came out on DVD with those red and blues involved.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, finally, for the first time in my whole miserable ass life, I could see this movie in 3D. You know, you could see that guy hold that shitty eyeball in front of the screen purposely like this.
Yeah.
In all the shots of where things are coming straight at the screen over and over and over again. Yeah, for a long time, this was a movie where I was actually legitimately creeped out by one scene in this movie as a kid, and that is the scene at the very end where it's like the dream sequence. It's like they were trying to recreate the end sequence from Friday the 13th Part 1, where she's out on the lake. But it's like a tiny little pond that she's hanging out in that fucking canoe in. And then she looks up, and in the top floor of is it the house or the barn or something? Jason without a mask looks out at her, and Jason looks so fucking goofy and creepy.
Yeah, it's so weird.
As a kid, man, that shit fucking freaked me the fuck out. I don't know what it was. The movie itself, I wasn't too keen on. I don't think Friday 13 Part 3 is as good as everybody.
No. Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people. I don't know. I think maybe it's a lot of people's first. I just because it's was it Paramount put these out? So it's like they're just like looking for something, and it's always that third film. It's like we're gonna like it's it's a third in a franchise, so we have to do 3D, and it's like and like I like that some of the kills are fun, but it's like it's not like I don't know. It just feels like they're kind of not running out of like ideas, but it's definitely like okay, and we get the whole mythology of we get the mask in this film, which is like automatically like yes, you can get a big check from me. It's like finally we get the actual look of the character that we're gonna have for the rest of the franchise, and everybody who is about a 6'7" who can wear a good fucking blue jumpsuit can find a decent mask and cosplay it at pretty much at Christmas or
at Christmas. You see
Halloween.
A lot of Jason cosplays at Christmas.
Yeah, all the time. Like Rain's sitting. It's either Santa Claus or Jason around here. If you want to, you want to get your pictures taken.
It makes total sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean,
Dick.
But yeah, I mean the look. I agree with you. The look's good.
Yeah.
The acting's fairly decent across the board in this movie.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fucking dull.
Yeah. No.
And the kills aren't particularly that great either.
No.
But it looks like Patreon subscriber Mikey K, who's in the chat right now, is going to bat for Shelley. What are your thoughts on Shelley?
It's the thing with like this, like with the first two films, there's memorable characters. Like I said, there's Adrienne King in the first one, and then when she gets brought into the second one, it's such a great kind of like reveal when you watch that beginning of that second one. You're like, holy shit, she gets killed off. It's like, fuck, and you got to reintroduce a whole new group. This one, it's like I don't know. It feels very much like, well, we have collection of kids 3.0, and it's like, okay, we got the kid in the wheelchair. Cool. It's like, we're really testing out the audience with a kid in a wheelchair in the woods. Which is like, oh no offense to him, but like it's like, oh no, it's like Franklin all over again, but he's not as annoying. But it's like, oh god, why are we pushing this poor kid out in the woods? Like no, like I mean, I understand diversity and all that stuff, but like no, man, come on. So yeah, I can't. To be honest, it just feels carbon copy like by the third one. It's like, fourth, fifth, sixth, you get a lot more kind of characters, much more kind of, especially directors and stuff like that, who kind of take on those roles of those films. They kind of make it much more their own thing. This feels like Paramount has finally kind of like figured out, like they're like, oh, we can continue making these films. So let's just get some kind of random fucking director that we can pay for nothing and force him to do this gimmick for the film. and just rake in the cash.
Well,
you know,
actually, this was directed again by Steve Miner.
Oh, was
this
it?
was again directed by Steve Miner, and they came across, because at the time, they had Jaws 3D. They had all really plunked down their hard-earned cash for that fucking 3D technology. And so they're like, hey, what better way to use this than a Friday the 13th film? So they leaned so fucking hard.
Oh yeah, it's mental.
It is ridiculous. And from what I read, and I have here, we'll switch the view here real quick.
Ooh.
Let's see if I can do this right. This is all stupid. There we wait. Oh my god, this is way too fucking much. There we go. I'm making you tiny, Vaughn. This is what's going to happen. I got the book back here, the Crystal Lake Memories.
Yeah.
And in Crystal Lake Memories, there's a lot of stories, and this is also in the movie version of Crystal Lake Memories. Sure. That the actual production of this movie with that 3D technology was so slow, and it was so difficult to put this shit together that it costed way more than it needed to. So nothing about this movie was it was so laborious in every single way for everybody involved, and I personally don't feel it was worth it.
I think it'd be most like a C tier, to be honest. And I think that'd probably be there's no I know you put dog shit as the very final, but I don't think any of these films are really going to be that. It's going to be probably be A through B through most of this.
Yeah, I think so.
A through, C is going to have a couple, and I think 3 is a C tier one.
I'm going to lean with you on C tier of this one. I used to consider it probably more of A tier way back in the day, because these first 4 films are supposed to be happening consecutively after each other. Right. So it's like one long story where he's just bopping around the lake.
Yeah.
Or I should say 2, 3, and 4, not the first one. The first one happens like 10 years before, or was it no, it happens right after, because Adrian King gets killed in the you're right. So the first 4 films are kind of its own contained thing. And then 5 through, 8 are their own thing. And then there's the New Line movies. So there's
5 through 4, 5, and 6 are kind of their own thing, because we introduce a new kind of, main character that kind of becomes that whole, with I can't think of his fucking name. Corey Feldman's
Tommy
character.
Jarvis.
Yeah. Yep. Tommy Jarvis. And that kind of 4, 5, and 6 are his kind of storyline. Even though it's 3 different actors, but it's still, so it's weird. It's the first 4 films are one whole storyline, because the 4th one is considered the last, the final film. Right. But then they were somebody wrote another screenplay where they involved Tommy Jarvis, and it kind of continued another trilogy within the that first 4 films. It's okay. And then after 6, it kind of gets murky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it just becomes kind of like a hit of the week kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just Jason's just the only glue that's really tying this thing together. It's interesting. I never really thought of it that way, where I've always thought the first 4 films were kind of like one story. But I think you're right. There's the first trilogy, then there's the Tommy Jarvis trilogy, because 4, 5, and 6 all have him associated with them. And then 7 and 8 are kind of like their own thing. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all just offshoots. And then the other 2, which unfortunately we have to talk about those fucking gimmicks.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say about those right now. But let's get I think Friday 13 Part 3 solid C tier. I know there are people that'll go to bat for it. I know I agree with the chat. There was a lot of people saying that Part 3 had the best soundtrack. That theme song is fucking fire.
Oh yeah,
that shit is great. And I got to show you guys one last thing: the Friday the 13th novelization. I'm a total fucking mark. Have you not fucking noticed it yet? Look at this.
I see it took you all day to set up that whole thing behind you.
Tell me about it. It was a fucking jug. It's like Jenga back in this motherfucker. It's stupid. It was real stupid. A while back, I was actually on the Patreon reading this book. And
oh, really? Oh, yeah. I think I remember that.
I gave up on those audiobooks on the Patreon. If there's enough people out there that want to hear me read through shit, I mean, I'll bring it back. Obviously, I'm a whore for money, and if you guys want me, I did that stupid Ass Monster podcast, which Vaughn was like legitimately here. I'll blow you up for this one.
Yeah.
Vaughn and Villainous, who's in the chat, the only people that subscribe to that. Oh wait, no, Mikey K, who's in the chat, also subscribed.
Mikey K did for a little bit. Yeah, he kind of he jumped on near the end when you started having your like epiphany.
Yeah, you mean when I started having like moral quandaries about why I'm talking about rape films?
Yeah.
Oh,
like, is the money really worth this?
It's not. It wasn't. No. That podcast was starting to depress me.
I know. I've listened to those episodes. I know you were at like death's door. It seemed like.
Hey, Vaughn, I still swear. I can tell. I said I was going to do one more podcast.
One more.
I still am going to do that. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. And I want to do Ass Monster.
That's the one you should do.
That's the only one I feel like I have to do. Did we do Ant Farm Dickhole on that?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't think you had to like I know I wanted you to do like Dick Shark and stuff like that because like oh god, but like I forget you got to the one where they were on the spaceship.
Science fiction.
Yeah, and I think that's what broke you the most out of all of it. And you're just your whole discussion on that. You can hear you in it, just getting more and more just questioning your life choices.
I was. That's legitimate.
As like every time you go to a new part of that film, and it's like it's like okay, this person's on this planet, and this is going on, and you can just hear your voice gets, your whole thought process is right there inside, and you can, even though I'm listening to it, I know that you're sitting there recording it going, this wasn't a good idea. Like I why did I do this? Like, yeah.
Those were tough podcasts to produce, man, because man, I took notes on fucking everything that happened in those goddamn movies. Those podcasts, I mean, I felt not to sidetrack this and make this about the Ass Monster podcast. This is no longer a podcast on my Patreon. But man, I never sat and worked as hard on a podcast as I did on those. It arguably wasn't worth it. And Silhouetted Animator in the chat says we should do Ass Monster, the final chapter.
God.
Having said that, let's go ahead and go to Friday the 13th, the final chapter, part 4 in the series. This movie, Vaughn.
Yeah.
Brother Shane and I had this on VHS, and we wore this motherfucker out. I couldn't tell you how many times I've watched Friday the 13th Part 4. This, my friend, before we even get to the discussion, this is S tier.
Okay. I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I mean, I think the small bit of horror films that Joseph Zeta did as a director are just phenomenal. Like, this and The Prowler, like it's fantastic. And it really just ratchets. And the fact that they got Savini to come back because they're like, okay, we're going to end the series at 4. Could you come back and do the special effects? And he had a reason. He had a choice to kill off the character he helped create. Yeah. And it's like, why wouldn't he come back? And by this time, a handful of years later, he had better set up his process, and he was doing a lot more films. So he's able to, it didn't look as kind of low budget, and they had a lot more money to play with. And it's like, yeah, and it's just the whole thing ratchets up. And is this the first one with Hodder?
No, Kane Hodder didn't come into it until part 6. Wait, no, until part 7.
7.
Part 7.
Okay, so
yep.
Oh, it was Ted White that did Voorhees in this film.
And his thing is fucking this movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, and just the way that Savini kind of created the way that character looks in this film, it's just this imposing figure that just has no fucks to give, and it's like he's going for broke the whole time. And it's like, they incorporate something like, that Savini was kind of a fan of. Like, when he was a kid, he was always into like, monster movies and makeup and stuff like that. So having Tommy Jarvis being that kind of kid who's obsessed with horror movies and trying to reproduce monster makeup and stuff like that is like, it's so telling in a weird way. And it just kind of is like a weird love letter to the fans of all horror movies.
Well, and the people that supported, even though Frank Mancuso and Paramount were very ashamed that this was the series that was making them so much money, and
right, and that's why they wanted to kill it off.
That's why they wanted to end it, because they basically felt like they were making porn with these fucking movies.
Well, it was them, and then the MPAA was so up there. By 84 this film came out. Like, and it was like the MPAA was so hard up all the film companies' butts about producing this stuff, kind of like what they did with in Britain with the the lists and everything like that, where they were kind of pulling films because they felt that the people were going to lose their fucking minds and go on killing sprees. And we had the MPAA here, who was just like they couldn't censor it, but they could push it and kind of hold it back and make the directors and the production companies censor the films, because they wouldn't give them the right, they wouldn't let them release them to the theaters. If they gave them anything lower than an R rating, the film couldn't be released. And so they just kind of held their asses to the fire, and it's like fuck.
Well, and especially these first 4 films, a lot of that footage just didn't survive at all, because nobody was anticipating like the need for unrated cuts or for like DVD extras. These
are holding on to the film that we cut and kind of putting and just like leaving it in its spools and putting with the rest of the stuff. So maybe in future generations, someone can come back and integrate that stuff back into the films again. No, they weren't thinking.
No, they threw that shit in the garbage. That shit is gone.
Yeah, and it was always like the hard friggin', that hard print, that first print that they would cut and just completely use that one to reproduce everything else. So there's not like that weird like screwball kid you knew in high school who was like, oh yeah, I saw the freaking uncut version. No, you didn't, dude. There's no uncut version. The one you saw was like, you didn't see any extra that we all saw. No, it's like, it's not like today where it's like it's all digital and they can pretty much put it. Okay, we're gonna put this all in a folder, and then when it comes out the home video, we're just gonna dump all this gore and violence back into the film, and no one can stop us from doing that. And maybe occasionally 1 or 2 big box company won't sell the disc, but who gives a shit? We'll just sell it online and we'll make the same amount of money.
Yeah. It looks like, what do we have in the chat here? Silhouetted is talking about the video nasties and that Blood Freak was on there, and Blood Freak is tame as hell. Well, most of those movies that were on the video nasties list were definitely, it was more of a witch hunt. Like the video nasties is a whole other discussion. And I mean, Friday the 13th wasn't necessarily ever considered on the video nasty list, was it?
Which one?
Any Friday the 13th films.
I don't think so. I think like Chainsaw was on one version. I forget which one. I think like the is it the category 3 tier? Like there's
like the Chinese Cat 3 movies.
No. There's like there's a, if you look into the whole thing of the video nasties, there was 3 categories. There was the ones that got seized, the ones that were like prosecuted but didn't get seized, and then there was like the third category is ones that were like, they were looked at, they were never prosecuted, but they were taken off shelves because the people who were selling it or renting it were like, I might as well just take this off the shelf because I don't want to be put in jail for selling something like this if it ends up. Yeah. And like Chainsaw and a couple other films were put on that, were on that list. So yeah, it's like 3 it's like tiers, I guess you can say. So yeah.
Yeah, I have a feeling because these movies made so much money, they kind of let these slide a little bit. I mean, because they cut them down. They were so judicious about cutting these things down to the bare essentials. I mean, some gore. Yeah. I think out of the first 4 movies, obviously Friday the 13th Part 4 is the most vicious, the most gory, the most in your face of them all. Which is what led me to really like wanting to rewatch it over and over again. There's such an oppressively bleak tone to this movie once it gets to the horror sections. It's kind of like light and bouncy with all the characters. You have great actors throughout. I mean, you have Corey Feldman's really at his peak in this movie. I mean, he's like post Goonies, I believe, and this is like that prime era of Corey Feldman before he turned. And I hope our good friend Parker Bowman isn't listening to this until he turned into a goddamn creep for the rest of his fucking life.
Pretty much.
Oh my god! You ever watched his band?
Oh, I've seen videos. And I've seen like people posting live stuff of them, and it's like, oh god, and like just seriously something just like, and I know it's a whole California thing, so people are a little more kind of murky there, but like him and his wife, and then like all the girls that he uses for his band are like not runaways, but like they came from broken homes, and he kind of took them in as like to help them out, and like it's like it's like really kind of like gross. It's like no
thanks. You also have Crispin Glover in this movie, who obviously we can't talk about this movie without acknowledging not only that he's a dead fuck. The computers told him that he was a dead fuck. Probably the greatest line of any movie of all fucking time. And the dance.
Yeah.
He dance. Have you ever tried to recreate that dance, Fawn?
No,
possibly inebriated.
No, actually, no.
I would love to see, and I bet you just have to go to a goddamn horror convention after about 8 o'clock at night, when things are starting to get a little juiced, and just ask somebody bring like your phone and cue up that goddamn song. I bet you get a few, marks out there to dance that fucking thing and just sit back and laugh at them the whole time. But yeah, this movie, once it starts going, this is a legitimate horror movie, brother. This is definitely one of, if not the best of this series, because I have another one that I actually like better that we're going to be talking about soon. Sure. But this definitely for me is S tier, and I changed it over on the screen to S tier. Fuck this. Whoever put this together. I think when we go forward, I'm going to start like relabeling this stuff so we have a consistent kind of list going forward.
Yeah, like I said, like it's Joseph Zito, it's Tom Savini, and it's like they work together on The Prowler, and The Prowler is a miserable film. Like miserable, and like it's nasty. You know what I mean? Yes, a lot of people don't particularly care for like the way that film resolves itself, like the ending of it is like it's a little weak, but like the murders and the way the film works up till that point, and the whole kind of mythology in that film is so great. And the fact that this film kind of takes that mythology of the last 3 films and kind of just creates this, like creates the character of Jason as like a much more kind of gnarlier figure in this film. He's unrelenting, he's unstoppable. Like he just goes for broke this whole time, and it's not a huge cast. We're mostly kind of following Feldman and his sister and like her friends. And it's brutal, and it's just it's I would definitely put it up at S tier because it's just
What's your favorite kill in this movie?
I don't have a favorite kill. I just like I like the end. I like near the end where he just doesn't stop. When he's just like pretty much dismantling the house that they were living in. It was like they're living in this cabin in the middle of nowhere, and he's just like fucking. He will not stop, and they keep fucking trying their best to put him down, and he just keeps coming back up and just keeps going and going and going. And you're like, and it just takes Feldman's character, like spoiler, but takes Feldman's character to pretty much reproduce the look of him as a child, to kind of like get that weird, like, that deep recesses of whatever brain is still left in this guy's head, to kind of stop and think about it for a second. And like, he kind of transfixes him, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sake, that's just awesome. And like, we haven't talked about this, but like the character in the last 2 films, he's been killed pretty much. Right. Like, or like we thought he was killed. And in this film, he's literally just destroyed. Like there's no way in hell he could come back from this.
I mean, his head is basically chopped in half.
Yeah, he's got the biggest gash in his skull. if he did come back from this, it has to be the way it does come back, which I love the kind of conversation that is with the whole thing. We'll get to that when we get to like 6, because that's a whole other story. That's a whole other kind of like argument within the whole kind of community of people who really love this film series. So,
yeah. What are you talking about? Like him being real versus like, being a zombie, like being alive?
Yeah, I never, yeah. There's a whole idea of like the Revenant or the zombie, idea, and I always feel that Jason's more of a Revenant. He's kind of just he's a lumbering spirit within that husk of a body that only knows one thing, and that's just to kill.
Which is kind of explored in Jason Goes to Hell. That's kind of like the idea they were trying, even though goofily trying to explore that idea. That's basically the genesis of that.
Yeah. And like people are like, oh, he's a zombie. He's not a zombie. We all grew up with Romero stuff. He doesn't eat brains. He doesn't attack people to just randomly attack people. There's something left in the recesses of his head that makes him want to get revenge for the death of his mother, and he continues to do this regardless of how, he decays and falls apart and everything like that. So it's like, he's just, and we'll get to it. Like with 6, when he gets brought back to life, like it's pure happenstance that it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a fluke, and it's kind of, I mean, let's not jump the shark. It's basically Frankenstein being reanimated, which was purposeful, obviously.
Right.
But I like this idea that the chat is proposing that it's kind of like the Swamp Thing idea.
Sure.
He was killed in the lake. Something about the spirit of the lake and the rage and whatnot has reanimated him. And he's not necessarily a real person.
Yeah, not anymore anyway. Yeah.
Not from 2 on. So would you say, before we get to the part 6, would you say he's a zombie starting in part 2? Or is he just a different creature?
I think it's just, I think it's like I said, I think it's just this entity that can't be stopped. Like kind of like, like a universal style monster, something where it's like you have something with a purpose, and that purpose is just death. And it's, no matter how hard you try to stop it, he's never, and he's stuck in the woods. That's why like some things like even though like I like Manhattan, I don't think taking that character out of the woods doesn't really particularly work. Or even like with like Jason X, it's like like just keeping him in the woods, kind of keeping him stuck there in that woods, in that woods in New Jersey, where the hell they are. Kind of just lumbering and roaming around, and the townsfolk having this story, this kind of history, this of like, don't go in the woods alone, don't go, don't try to change things, don't because every time, the first 3 films at least, they keep trying to bring this stupid campsite back to like, like they bring kids in and like, oh, they're cleaning up, we're going to start it up this summer, and nothing goes right because you have this lingering like, kind of like folk tale running around killing people, causing it to not, you just stop, just don't do it.
Yeah, but nobody listens. It's kind of like the same idea of like The Grudge, like Ju-on, like those series of films that there's there was an atrocity that happened with a lot of anger and a lot of sadness confined to one space, and that spirit, the sorrow and the rage just lives on in that space. And Jason kind of is also the embodiment of that in this area. So I kind of do agree with you, even though I do like, I mean, we'll get to it when we get to those other movies. I do like when he's fish out of water. I like when they toss him in different.
There's certain things about Manhattan that I enjoy. The story is so off the wall. And I can get that. And like, with X, it's like, we're just like we've run out of ideas. Like, let's just go fucking wild with it.
Well, after you get to like the 7th or 8th movie in the series, at that point, even the 6th movie in the series, if you aren't taking chances and if you aren't fucking with formula, what's the point?
Right.
That's always been my problem with the Halloween films. They stuck way too close to like the same thing for way too fucking long.
Yeah, definitely.
For way too long. So anyways, first 4 films, arguably, for most people, the best films of the series. I think if you would talk to the casual fucking viewer of Friday the 13th films, they would point to these movies. Now, starting here is where things get a little screwy for people, and I think, Vaughn, you and I may differ on this, but we're going to take a short break right now, and I am going to have a little ad break here, and when we come back, we will talk about what maybe, I'll drop a little salty tip here, maybe my most watched Friday the 13th film. We'll be right back.
This is Astro Radio Z, and we love talking about movies with you. If you are looking for more episodes and want to become part of the show, go to patreon.com/Astro Radio Z and become a monthly subscriber to have access to 100+ bonus episodes of content. Jump in. Make Astro Radio Z yours and become a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/Astro Radio Z.
I ain't lying, baby.
Folks, I know it isn't normal on Astro Radio Z to sit and chill so goddamn much, but sometimes you gotta fucking chill. Are you taking off, Silhouetted? It was nice seeing you. I want to give a few shout outs to my chat here. Kim is here, Villainous, Chibi from Twitch, Wayne, Mikey K, all you guys, thank you so much for showing up tonight. This new fucking concoction of Astro Radio Z. I really fucking appreciate that you're taking the time out of your night to come here and do this. If you guys want to support the stream, here's a QR code. You can drop a donation. It would really help me out a lot. I'd really fucking appreciate it. If not, no worries. Otherwise, go over to my Patreon and then you can Vaughn's making out here. I got to turn this off. I'm going to turn off his goddamn camera. That son of a bitch should have warned me that he's going to get frisky on my goddamn stream. My God, Vaughn. I got you turned off right now, Vaughn, because I'm afraid you're going to get too frisky on my goddamn show here. I'll turn you back on, Vaughn.
Oh, okay, hi. I thought I had a minute, so I know how you like to plug, so.
Oh, I love this. Well, oh shit, all my stuff's falling. I got too goddamn excited.
Live podcasting, people. That's what you do.
It'd be hours to put that shit together. Hours for all this stupid merch that I still have laying around. Let's go through some of this before we get on with the remaining chat.
Okay.
I have been such a mark for so many years for these fucking Friday the 13th films that I've accumulated way too much shit. I'm not bringing down my Jason dolls, which are all over my fucking room. But, of course, I got the Friday the 13th NES cart.
Did you ever beat it?
Fuck no, I didn't beat it. Did you?
No. No, I've watched speed runs. I watch people actually play that game now, and I'm like, and you're like, and it takes like what 15 minutes. I'm like, what?
I don't know how you would ever do that. I am 46 years old right now, Vaughn. I don't know how old you are, and I'm not going to presuppose.
I'm only a couple years younger than 143. I just turned 43.
So you're a young whippersnapper. Young whippersnapper. I've tried my entire life to beat this fucking thing. Every single time I plunk this thing goddamn in, I whip the bird at it because it's fucking hard as shit.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. But like it's I don't know. It's something about that game, which is like the music, like just the way it plays, and like I still get freaked out. Like I haven't played in a while, but like just like when you have Jason come past you, when you walk in, also you hear the music clink, tings.
Yeah.
That ding, ding, ding. He runs out. He runs across, and you're like, "Holy shit!" It scares the shit out of me.
Oh, it's so
all
good.
The time.
I think for its time, and LGN gets really the designer of that game really gets slung through the mud.
Well, it's like it's probably out of all the games they ever released, It's probably the one game that actually, kind of held up to what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Everything else is kind of just really just trash.
Well, like the fucking Nightmare on Elm Street game. Get the fuck. What the fuck is that? You're trying to punch fucking rats and bats.
Yeah, I don't
Frankensteins. Where were there Frankensteins in Nightmare on Elm Street?
I don't know. Yeah, it just feels like they had the title and they were like, "Well, we got to put this guy in there." It's like, okay,
such trash.
Cool, whatever.
Such trash. So, along with that, I had already shown you guys this fucking Friday 13th Part 3 novelization. I also, on top of having Blu-rays and VHSs, and you can see this right here, Friday 13th Final Chapter CEDs. I don't know if you guys know what CEDs are. I know, Vaughn, you know what these gimmicks are. So back before VHS was a thing, there were CDs, which was an RCA kind of thing, Select-O-Vision video discs. And before you presuppose, is this Laserdisc? No. So these came in these like plastic sheets or like cases.
I love those cases. Yeah,
they're beautiful. Look at the artwork on this thing.
Yeah, the artwork on those things, like for some of those, especially the horror movie stuff, it's just like they really went out. And then it's like what, like a vinyl record inside of those things?
It was a vinyl record, and the concept was pretty much the same as vinyl records. It was run off of a 360 stylus, and the thing that kind of was the capacitor for like actually showing the picture, they were coated in silicone. Yeah. So they are definitely something that over time has been degrading. And if you put these things, like I still have a functional disc player too.
Like I think you were was on Instagram, you put some of that stuff up?
Yeah, I was here, let me see if I can. Where did I put this?
Oh god.
I'm gonna trash all the shit. Oh shit. Getting too fucking risky here, guys. I was for a long time I was collecting these, and I don't recommend anybody becoming CED collectors.
Yeah, my brother just actually acquired like 2 Laserdisc players, and he's like, "Where do you think I can get them?" Like, go to like antique stores. You'll find Laserdisc.
Half price books.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, he's like, "Oh, okay, I'll have to look." I'm like, "Okay."
Nobody though is carrying CEDs. Here's the thing we're going to be talking about next, Friday 13th Part 5. One major thing, if you decide to become a CED collector, and I found this out really quickly, was that I was trying to get all these. It was only a thing until like I think 1984, and then VHS came out, and it just wasn't worth the time because these things were so temperamental.
They're expensive and temperamental,
and they were print on order. It's not like they mass produced them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's only like a few. Trying to think of how many CDs there are out there. It's not a huge number. It's not a real huge number. But when I was collecting these things, when you would get them from eBay, and I got Part 4 and Part 5, I get so fucking jacked. I'm like, oh fuck yeah, let's put it in. And the motherfuckers, because the way these things work is that the player, you slide this thing in, it clicks into place these things and pulls the disc out.
Yep.
And so you just have a sheath like, let me see here. I was watching Part 2 earlier. If you can see here, there's like an empty space here where the disc goes. So that thing's just stuck in there in a holder right now. And it only plays like 45 minutes to 50 minutes aside, and then you got to take it out like a vinyl record and then do the other side to watch the rest of the fucking movie. But because of that, people, they weren't putting discs like most people, like, your video games when you're getting antsy and you put them in the wrong cases.
Yeah.
Same thing was happening. There's no way for you to know what disc which, because there's no writing on any of them.
Yeah, until you play
it. I've taken these things out. I've checked them to see if there was, because Friday 13 Part 4 and 5 that I got are just cases inside. Like this one, as it says here, is Amityville 2.
Wow.
And the other one is like, I forget what the fuck movie it is. It's definitely not. It's like a Steve McQueen movie. It's not Bullet, but it's like some movie that's not even remotely close. So I was so fucking pissed off. because I was like trying. There is only the only one I don't have like a case for is part 3, which not the end of the world.
Yeah, you're not killing yourself. Yeah.
So, anyways, that's our diversion. Let's get back to the fucking tier list here. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And we're going on to part 5, folks. Oh man, I got to get to. Man, this is weird, man. Trying to get this all going. Friday 13 Part 5, A New Beginning. You knew they weren't going to stop making these fucking movies. They were making too much goddamn money.
Yep. No.
So they got to bring back, they got to quote unquote, do the hard quote unquotes here, bring back Jason. Spoilers, ain't fucking Jason.
Nope.
It's our boy Roy.
And this was directed by Danny Steinman, who did like, Savage Streets and The Unseen. Like, and it's like,
and a bunch of
you're
porno.
like, okay, yeah, oh yeah, well, yeah, but like, you can just he's a decent director to kind of be put on the task of kind of fucking with the audience, I guess you can say, because this film, starts with the, where Tommy Jarvis has been brought, we're now like, he's older, he's still affected from the incident that happened, God knows, a handful of years ago. He's in this kind of halfway house with a bunch of other kids who are kind of mentally and emotionally disturbed. One kid who's just not doing anything wrong per se, right?
Nope.
He gets axed to death. And this kind of starts this whole thing of, Jason coming back and coming around and killing the rest of the kids that are in this halfway house. And Tommy is the one who has to try to stop it.
Well, he's also the red herring of the movie.
It's true.
Because at the end of part 4, they do the whole cliffhanger where he looks into the camera, where Corey Feldman looks into the camera and is like, "Oh, is he the next Jason?" They really play with that expectation.
And they did that in this one too. At the end of this one too, after Jason's been murdered, we find out it's Roy, who was the paramedic, who was the father of the kid who was killed. You at the very end of it, when Tommy's sitting in the hospital bed, we get the whole thing of like, is he or has he lost it completely, and is now he's taking on the umbrage of Jason, just like Roy did, kind of to fuck with people. Like Roy was doing it to kind of cause fear and everything else like that in the where he was causing his murders, because he had lost his goddamn mind. It was really never clear why. I understand why he did it, because it was this kid who was killed. It kind of broke him. Yeah. But like, why take on the mantle of Jason? You know what I mean?
Well, because it was an easy thing for people to point, and it would miss. It's a misdirection.
Misdirection. Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of like a Scooby. It's kind of like a Scooby Doo.
It's 100% a Scooby Doo.
Because when he finally gets killed and they take the mask off and he's wearing a prosthetic face, a prosthetic like head cover over his own face, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, they were also playing with like the part 1 angle again. It's a whodunit as opposed to a straight up slasher where everybody knows who the killer is.
Yeah. By this time, everybody's like, "Oh, it's fucking it's got to be Jason." No. And then when you get the resolve, when you end up finally killing him, it's like, "No, it isn't. Oh shit, what the fuck?" And then you get the story back of like, oh, "Okay, why was this? Who was this person?" I was like, "Oh, he was the paramedic. Oh, that was his son." It's like, it makes so much sense. There are some things that are memorable, and this is the film that has the enchilada scene, which is, a kind of a staple for this podcast.
Demon. Demon. Yeah. I mean, Jesus Christ. We all know. I kind of want to play the video. I kind of want to make that happen. So we'll maybe it's on the Astro Radio Z page, so I should be able to make this happen very fucking easily. If you guys give me a few minutes. But yeah, there's so many good scenes in this movie. Now, I got to ask you before we get to this point.
Sure.
This was reviled for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And considered just as fucking bad, if not worse, than fucking Halloween 3. What do you think about that?
No, I'm a big fan of Halloween 3. So I don't understand. Like I get the time. I get when it first came out. A lot of people were kind of really hurt and kind of pissed off about the whole thing. I get that, but like in hindsight, In hindsight, it's like it's a great kind of misdirection. Like they wanted to keep the film series going, but they didn't know really where to go because by the end of the fourth film, he's destroyed. Like, he's dead. Like there's no way you can bring this character back.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And it has to be somebody who's really smart to bring it back. And because the audience hated the idea of what this film was, kind of let's go back to what the first film was all about, you know, and kind of make it more of a mystery than an actual slasher film, even though it has a really a good amount of kills in this film.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of a mystery of like, is it really Jason or is it someone else? Like, and it's like, you know, when you get that reveal at the end of the film, you're like, I can understand people going to be like, fuck, that sucked. Like, why would you do that? You know, like, but I don't know. I kind of like the film. I don't think it's one of the greatest films in the series, but I kind of like it. And I like the fact that it's the middle film within this kind of weird trilogy, you know, at the end of the very first four. And it's like, we're going to continue the character Tommy Jarvis, different actor. But like, you know, we pushed it up a couple years, so he's now older. But it's like, I like that they kind of continue that character. We didn't get that with Adrian King. Adrian King's character got killed off in the beginning of the second film, and it would have been great if she was the kind of lead, the kind of transition. But I understand why they do that too. It's a whole Hitchcocking thing of like, let's bring the main actress back, and then we'll kill her within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah,
you know,
this is a movie that over time grew on me tremendously to be the movie that I actually watch more than the rest of them. I've seen this thing so many times. So before we get to our ranking of this movie, because this movie, as you had said, it kept with the high kills. Probably the most kills compared to part 6, which obviously has an astronomical amount of fucking kills in it. But like part 4, it's nasty. It really mean-spirited. It's kind of stylish with a lot of the shot choices of like the nightmare sequences with Tommy Jarvis. I like that whole misdirection with his visions and all that stuff. It's just a super great movie. And let's watch this Friday 13th Part 5 Disco Remix, the fucking video that every couple months my fucking late bud Blade Braxton at 2 a.m. would text me, Derek, can you send me the link to the fucking Friday 13th Disco Remix? Can you please send it to me? And I'd always be yes, Blade. So let's listen and watch this for a second. If this isn't like in your top 10 of greatest songs, greatest YouTube videos of all time, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, right.
Who the fuck are you? I don't want to know you. We're gonna play this whole goddamn thing. It's worth it to all the fucking viewers of Astro Radio. I've been waiting to do this Friday 13th episode for so goddamn long. If we don't have the Ooh Baby Demons remix, it'll be all for naught. This shitbox is gross. Shitbox gross. It's not that long. We only got like less than a minute left.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So good.
Oh my Christ.
So obviously,
Yeah,
that
definitely.
video is S tier. That video alone is fucking S tier. But that scene, I think that scene of any scene in the entire series has more legs than anything else that's come out. Because there is not a single horror fan that I talk to nowadays that doesn't talk about that demon scene where they're they're singing to each other while he's taking a shit.
It's so fucking
in the fucking damn enchiladas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest scenes in any movie, period.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get to the ranking of this thing. Now that I totally sidetracked this entire gimmick.
Right.
I am leaning towards, I can't put it S tier.
No.
A tier.
Yeah, we can do that.
You agree with this?
Sure.
Oh my God, I feel like it's a coup. I feel like you and I right now are like testing the waters of the horror gods. Like our street cred is going to go out the window for most people. But I don't give a fuck. It's going on A tier. Goddamn Friday 13 Part 5. A tier all the way, baby.
Yeah, I think we're gonna piss a couple people off who are listening to this too.
I
so.
don't give a fuck. They can eat shit. So let's go on to the series where the movie in the series where Jason gets resurrected. Friday 13 Part 6. Jason Lives, widely considered like one of the best horror comedies of all time. Obviously,
sure.
Paying homage to so many things outside of the horror genre and in the horror genre itself. This is the movie, and I'm just going to lay this out there immediately. This is my favorite movie in the entire series. This is the movie I've seen the most over the years. This is the movie that made me a huge Jason fan. I may have seen part 2 first, but when this movie came out, it hits all the fucking marks for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I like a lot of people kind of really scoff at like when they say, okay, Friday the 13th films, which ones do you like the most? And it's like, I like 4, 5, and 6. Like out of all of them, because I like the whole kind of Tommy Jarvis storyline. But I like the fact that it ends with this film and we get the kind of character that everybody knows as like Jason Voorhees, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people kind of like, as we go on, this is pretty much what we get. This is the undead, decaying corpse character that we get for the rest of the series. And it's funny, it's violent, it's like a gore comedy film. You know what I mean? It's so like
the editing, the timing, the acting across the board is way higher than almost any of the movies in this series.
Yeah, and the writing is so like they know exactly, because the people who wrote this film know exactly what they're into, what they're making, and they have enough of a back history now because they've already had 5 films that they can just play with it and really make it different. And I think also like Paramount had to kind of make up for the fact that with 5, like the audience was like, what the fuck is this? Like, even though like it made a ton of money, there was like this huge backlash with 5.
Well, like Halloween 3, that's why I likened it to it, is that that's the movie in this series that people point to as like, well, that jumped the fucking shark and we hate this, which I never understood.
But the great thing about that is that unlike with the Michael Myers films, with the Halloween films, is that with 3 they freaked out so badly with it, even though it made a ton of money, that like they said we have to go back, and there was this huge time period between 3 and 4, right? A number of years had gone past because they couldn't figure out how to how can we fix this, right? With this film, it's the next year.
Yeah.
They, Paramount was, even though Paramount hated making these movies,
they cranked them out every single fucking
year. And it's like, because they like the money. I mean, no offense, even though they're like, oh, these are the worst things. What's you say? Worst things. And this is probably the one film that kind of gets a lot of like grief for the amount of cuts that it has. Like, it kind of, it's weirdly like Tom McLaughlin kind of like really knew what he was working with in this film.
Yeah. And
he really knew how to play with it. And the actors all knew what they were doing. You have CJ Graham as like probably my favorite of like the Jason Voorhees characters. I like I can't remember his name in 4. I like the way but I like the way the look, and I like the way he plays the character. And
well, because he's a different Jason in this movie.
Right.
I agree with you. I think Ted White in Part 4, the way he moves,
just
the physicality,
unrelenting.
the unrelenting nature, which I didn't even talk about. My favorite fucking scene in that movie is when they throw that guy through the fucking window.
Right?
How aggressive that is. So, and also that scene where Crispin Glover's nailed to the fucking frame and he pulls him down. When I was a fucking kid, that scene grossed me the fuck out.
Yeah, it's gnarly.
Oh, it's so gnarly. But this one, he is definitely stiff. He plays it like a corpse. He doesn't play it like a normal.
Yeah, and the way the film starts with Jarvis going to the grave to make sure he's dead, and inadvertently brings him back to life.
Yeah,
which is like, you gotta be. It's like, dude, what the,
a real fucking dum dum.
Yeah, and it's like because he's so paranoid that like the character, the character isn't dead. Like, he's not dead. He's and was it Tom Matthews?
Yep.
Who who kind of like reprises that character in the Never Hike Alone
fan movies?
Yeah, the Never Hike Alone series. And he reprised that character, Tommy Jarvis, in those films. And it's like, and he's this is probably, and I know he's been in other things. He was in Return of the Living Dead and stuff like that. Wasn't it Return of the Living Dead? Yeah, Return of the Living Dead. He was
Return of the Living Dead first one, yeah.
And it's like, first and second one. He's in the second one too. But it's like, this is a character that people remember. They remember his version of Tommy Jarvis. It's like this, and
this is the one they used in the video game.
Yeah,
when they did that gun made that video game, the multiplayer one.
Right.
It is this Tommy Jarvis that is essentially your support, like big time, like
who's our savior.
Character.
Yeah, he comes in. If you survive long enough, Tommy Jarvis pops up and starts. Somebody can take over him, and you can have him as your like savior, I guess you could say.
Right. And he does a great Tom Matthews at that time. Great charisma, very. I mean, for this genre, good actor because he could play it snarky.
And the thing is, he doesn't
play it serious.
He doesn't die in this film.
Nope.
Right. So it's like, why not keep the character going? Like, as his Pleasant's character in the Halloween films. Like, why didn't we just have him be the Loomis character that continues to try to like stop him at all costs? Well, we know he can't be stopped, but like, at least like you have like that good and evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, after this film, they just like, I can't. 7 is such a like I don't know how many people are gonna like. I know a lot of people who kind of like 7, but I'm like, it's like my least favorite out of all of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it definitely is a different tone and definitely feels way more in line with like a direct-to-video release.
Yeah, it just feels
anything that had come before.
It feels like they had a screenplay and they needed a bad guy to put into it, and they just dumped friggin', they dumped Voorhees in there, and it's like, I don't know. We'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah. Like, but I agree with you for the most part. Like, the acting in Tom Matthews and all the kids and all the adults, they're all done so well, so charming. The dialogue, the script is really tight and really good. The shot selection for everything is exactly what it needs to be for the edit, for the gags to work, like the triple beheading, the fucking iconic shot of the RV turned over on fire and he's standing on top of it. What a fucking amazing thing. The entire intro where they bring Jason back to life, it's so amazing.
It's fucking crazy.
It's like, this movie, compared to anything that had come before it, had a lot of care, a lot of thought put into it. And I think, there was pressure to make this a blockbuster again.
Yeah.
After the backlash.
And especially like Paramount put money behind the soundtrack of it by giving, Alice Cooper really one of the more memorable Alice Cooper songs of the 80s. And actually, I think he puts out a couple of songs on, like Teenage Frankenstein's on that record, I think.
Yep.
It's pretty much a lot of like let's Alice Cooper pretty much do like the hits, but we'll have him make like 2 or 3 songs specifically for the soundtrack. And it's like that's awesome, right? It's just like and that He's Back, the Man Behind the Mask, that song is such a like iconic to this film. And it's like, it's like, oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so good. So
yeah,
when it comes down to it, this to me is S tier.
sure.
Obviously, it's my favorite movie of the entire series. You?
Yeah, I totally behind that. Like I said, like I like everything that's about this film. I like the fact that it just works. It just starts like a high, starts so high and it just stays there. It doesn't dip. It doesn't like linger. It doesn't fall apart. Like we don't have any time where we really get we get to breathe. But it's like it's like that thing where it's like when you're at like the top of the hill and there's only way you can either stay right there or you go down, and this film just stays right there through the whole thing. Even at the resolution of the ending of the film, it's like, okay, and you really want more of that.
Yeah.
And that's why with this next film I was really just disappointed when I finally got to see it.
And this is the only movie in the series that has kids in it.
Yeah.
Like legitimate kids. This is a summer camp.
Yeah.
It had, like, up to this point, all the fucking movies had counselors, but no fucking kids.
Yeah, because the kids
died before the counselors died before the kids came.
Yeah.
So this movie just like this is exactly like the video game in well, actually the picture on the video games from part 7.
Sure.
I mean, if you look at this, that's recent from part 7. But I mean a lot of media and stuff after this point took from part 6.
Sure.
Because this is just like this is the quintessential when you think of Jason, this movie's got fucking it all. So S tier. S tier all the fucking way. Now let's get to part 7. I know we're really going a lot longer than I thought we were going to go on this, but it's Friday the 13th. Of course we're going to fucking talk through this shit.
Yeah.
So Friday the 13th, part 7, A New Blood. Right. This was a movie that when it came out on tape, man, I watched this thing all the time.
Right.
Like the look of Jason, arguably this is my favorite looking Jason.
Sure. I'm not going to fight you there. I do like the way he does look in the film. The problem, and this is the first Kane Hodder one, right? Or was the last one?
Yep, this is the first Kane Hodder.
This is the first Kane Hodder, and it's definitely a size change, to be honest, because Kane is a small dude. Like we've all met him at conventions and stuff like that.
But he's shot in a way that makes him look menacing.
And he has that kind of fierceness because he's this big, bulky, fucking little dude. But like he has this menace to him. Regardless, even when you see him at conventions, I don't want to fucking go up to him. I hate going up to him.
Because he's jacked.
Yeah, because even like he's like what now in his late 60s, probably
something like that.
Early 70s. He's still an imposing force.
Yeah.
Right. So I like the way he looks. I like the way the character looks. And I like some of the actors in it. Terry Krauser pops up in this. Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's. Laura Lincoln parks up, and I even like the guy who directed this film, John Carr Buechler, who's made a couple of films that I love, like Cellar Dweller and fucking Troll, which is just like in the Ghoulies. I think he did Ghoulies 3, which is
wait, did he do Ghoulies 2 or 3? Was it?
I think it's 3. He went to he did the college one, so it's like and he did all those kind of like Full Moon Empire pictures, and like I like that, but like I don't know. The whole kind of fact that it's a girl with like kinetic power, telekinetic powers, and like you have the evil doctor that's gonna like trying to help her push it out of her, but it's all this kind of he's just doing this for his own fucking his own evil deeds, and then like Jason kind of gets brought back because she inadvertently does it with her powers, and it's like okay, and then the body count continues, and it's like I don't know. Like I was really kind of reeling because I was really expecting like, okay, we have this character, we have Tommy Jarvis. Why not make another movie where he's continuing to sit on top? Like he's continuing to try to stop this character at all costs. And it's like, and I understand why they did that. They wanted to kind of verge somewhere else. But like, I don't know. I like the look of him, but I just don't think the film is all that strong. And like the ending is so friggin' off the wall. Right.
Well, and that's arguably the best part of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Once he has his battle with this movie's Carrie.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what this is, Jason versus Carrie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That entire sequence, the finale of this movie, is the reason you watch this movie.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie, marred with awful acting, terrible dialogue, terrible pacing.
Yeah.
It unfortunately, you can tell that it was not shot in the northeastern region of the United States anymore.
Yeah.
This, I believe, was shot in Georgia.
Yep.
And it was shot in like fall. None of the trees have any fucking leaves on them.
I know. It's
And it's just like everything about this movie just kind of like shits the bed. I do like, the backstory, like the main characters of this movie are fleshed out. The mom, Tina, the doctor, fleshed out. Everybody else, stock as fuck. Like you don't give a fuck about the rest of any of these goddamn people, except for that science fiction nerd who's constantly trying to like slime on the one preppy chick.
Yeah.
And he's just talking about his ridiculously stupid fucking novels that he's writing. The only fucking comic relief in this whole thing. The true star of this movie is the special effects.
Sure.
It's absolutely the special effects. That suit that Kane Hodder's got on, the physicality that Kane Hodder brings to this role. It's no surprise that anybody that watches this that he became the Jason.
Yeah, and the fact
from this
that
point on,
you in this film you get the because if I remember correctly, right, he's at the end of the Flash when he's under a lake. He's pretty much been drowned to death again, and then it takes this character kind of bringing him back to life accidentally, just like Jarvis did in the last film, right, with her powers. And he's much more just like decayed and gnarly looking, and his clothes have been are falling off his skin practically, and you see the bones, and you see like when they actually expose his face when they take the mask off.
Yeah, it's so awesome.
You have that real he screams at them, and it's like, wow, it's such a cool looking design.
It's amazing, and I kind of agree with Kim in the chat. Says used to be her favorite, but she's grown less fond over it over the years, and it's definitely one of my favorite Jason looks. It's my favorite Jason look.
Yeah,
I mean it's so, and the way they did it in that video game, and I know we're gonna keep bringing it back. They did it such justice in that new video game. It looks so fucking cool. It's too bad that he's a fucking chore to play because he's so stiff. He's like a zombie. He can't run. He can't do shit. But anyways. I would say I kind of want to put this B tier.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's one of these things where like the effects and the look of it, and the fact that we have like decent characters and decent directing in it, I could kind of put it as a B tier film. I know it's not awful, but it's kind of just middle of the road.
I mean, when we think about what we have surrounding it, we have C tier is Friday 13 Part 3. Yeah. I think it's a better movie than Friday 13 Part 3.
Definitely.
It's not as good as any of the movies in A tier. So I think B tier is a good place for good gore and good creature design. Yeah. Terrible script, terrible acting, awful pacing, and cheap look. Cheap look to the fact that this obviously the credits were tossed on it using a video toaster. Like those end credits are so fucking cheap looking.
It doesn't look good at all. Yeah, that's just like
just fucking awful. So Friday 13 Part 7 is B tier. Let's move on to Part 8, and I decided to use my favorite Friday 13 poster of all time.
Oh yeah, I love that poster.
This is I have this in my house. I've always thought this is like the best thing ever. Friday 13 Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. And I know you said earlier in this podcast that this was like one of your favorites.
No, it's my first.
This is your first one. I think it was Kim in the chat that earlier before the show started when we were waiting for you she ranked this really high.
Wow. I remember seeing I remember going, there used to be a drive-in here near me. It got closed down many years ago, and there's a big, regional chain movie theater where it once sat. But like one of the films I remember my parents taking us to was one of these kind of like, kiddie films. And one of the trailers they showed before the film was the original trailer for this film.
Yeah.
And it freaked me out. And then
really? What was it about the trailer? I haven't seen the trailer to this. Maybe we should bring that up.
Yeah, the trailer is just very basic, but it just freaked me out because I was a little kid. Like, when did this come out? Like 89, 88?
I think like
89. So I was 9 years old when this came out, right? And then I saw it maybe like 3 or 4 years later, maybe 2 years later when I was like 11. And it's like, and it still wigged me out because it's just, I wasn't, I couldn't process the whole idea of like, am I actually watching people get killed? And so it's like, Okay, but that if I remember correctly, the trailer is like so basic. It's like him just standing on a boat.
It's like that fucking Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3 trailer. You remember that?
Yeah.
Let's watch the trailer real quick because I
Okay.
think it's only a minute and a half long.
Yeah, it's nothing.
And I remember that this is a fucking great trailer. Let's listen.
Yeah, look at this. Right?
He looks like a fucking goober. Look at that.
Right? And you're a 9-year-old kid waiting for like some kind of kid movie to start, and this plays right before the film starts.
Yeah.
Because people back in the 80s didn't give a shit. They're like, we have these trailers, just put them in the film. Who cares what movie we're watching?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a misdirection.
Brilliant marketing, I must say.
Yeah, it's completely misdirection. You don't know, if you're not a fan of these films, you don't know what the hell's going on.
And look at this. It goes on for so fucking long, this crane shot. And then it's like a step loop.
Right.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Part 8. Jason takes Manhattan. Now, New York has a new problem.
So good. That's a great fucking trailer, dude. Really.
Yeah,
it's definitely not Leatherface. My favorite trailer still is Leatherface Part 3 with the Excalibur and all that fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that freaking trailer.
But so fucking good.
But that's the thing. So I saw that when I was 9 years old, and I was like, what in the hell is that? Because it's such a misdirection. It starts to cue of New York, and then it goes into this weird kind of jazz while you have this guy who's, you can't even tell. It's not as just the problem with the character looking in this film is they definitely pulled back from what John Carl Buechler and people and company did in the film before, of how kind of gnarly and gross he looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still Kane Hodder, but they definitely redesigned the costume and the look of Jason in this film to make him more mobile and less gross, right? Like, it would be really cool if they said, hey, we're going to keep the same look from the last film, but we're going to have you roam around New York City. And it's like, oh, that would be really fun.
The idea is really cool, but admittedly, this is just Jason on a fucking cruise ship.
About what's 50% of the film?
3/4 of the movie is Jason on a cruise ship,
and it's not even a cruise ship. It's like a party boat.
It is absolutely a party boat,
and you don't even know why. Like, these kids are on this for like it's a school trip, and you're like, wait, what? And it's like we're on a little lake in the middle of New Jersey. And that's going to somehow divert into,
right? What is the logistics of getting there?
Yeah, it's like it somehow you get into the Sound, and you get onto the Atlantic, and you're able to get into Manhattan proper, and it's like, what? And it's another film where it's like Paramount realized that they can make a lot more money if they brought it to Canada, and that's what they did with this film. They shot this all in Canada, so it's not another one of these kind of like even in the States anymore. And there's like 5 or 6 minutes, and all the rest of the New York scenes that we see are all sound stages. It's just very kind of just indescript, like New York alleyways. And then we have that one scene where he roams through Manhattan in the gear, and you have the punk kids being jerks, and he kicks over the boombox. And they pull out their knives, and they're going to start shit with him. And he just turns around and pulls the mask off. We don't see his face, even though we've seen his face from the last film. Just the way the kids react to it, they run off completely freaked out. Like, it's supposed to be much more horrifying than seeing
than what it was.
Yeah, and it's like, how can you get any more? Like, it would just be bone. Like, that's all it would be. There'd be no skin left, and it'd just be a skeleton's face. Just with like small remnants of a skin and sinew all around it.
Well, you can tell they didn't have the budget.
No.
And they didn't have John Carl Buechler on this to do the makeup effects.
Yeah.
And it shows in every way. Like, the kills are all really uninspired. as you said, the design and makeup of Jason is just fucking cheap looking. He's slime Jason, which is, I mean, for what it is, because he was in the lake for so long.
Right.
I get it. I get what that is.
And
but again, you have a fucking movie filled with actors that can't fucking act.
Yeah,
You
and
got
then
a fucking real shitty script. The whole idea, the concept of it being on this cruise ship, and then the whole draw of the movie is like 15, 20 minutes long
and
in
then
a bunch of alleyways.
And then the ending of the film. The ending of the film is the most bizarre, make no goddamn sense ending I've ever seen in a film. And I remember watching it when I was 11, being totally freaked out about it, and then watching that ending where, you know, you have Jason slowly, you know, coming for them, and they somehow open up, like, you know, New York sewer, and like this, like, you know,
it's full of toxic waste.
Toxic waste comes in.
That's all that's down there is fucking toxic waste.
And transforms him back into the child he was originally in the first film. Like, you know, normal looking child, but still a child.
Right.
And you're like, wait, what the hell is that? Like, are we witnessing the last like inklings of these people, you know, our heroes, as they're about to be murdered? Like, what is going on? Like, it's never explained.
Well, they try to build for like the vast majority of the movie, the protagonist, she had this, you know, encounter with Jason as a child in the lake, not unlike Adrian King in the first one.
Right.
But it makes no sense. Like the way they try and like retcon this into the lore just makes no sense. It doesn't tie into it. So then the ending itself is just like, that's the best you got. You just fucking gave up. The only thing I would say that you recommend this movie for is the fucking decapitation punch into the fuck. That is one of the best kills of the entire series.
Yeah, it's a fun, and then the guitar kill in this film is okay.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's a mostly bloodless movie though.
Right? No, it definitely
There's really not.
Paramount started to realize what they could do with these films. It's like, we can still do the violence, we can still do the character, but we can pull it back all the way. And we have a director, like the guy who directed this. I don't think he really did anything worthwhile.
Like, well, he wasn't even a horror director. He wasn't even a real fan of it.
He was a kind of like anything. I looked like I was looking at stuff before I got on here this afternoon, and like all his stuff feels like just work for hire, and it's just
that's
like
all it was.
And it's like, ugh, that sucks, right? So it's like, you know, and like that happens with the rest of them. Like, you know, like the next one we're going to talk about is like kind of one of those guys who really didn't do a lot of horror films, and like, you know, like. So I don't know. I would.
Adam Marcus, who did the next movie, was a fan.
Sure,
he was an avid fan. Like,
that
was a big deal to him. But it definitely, again, was another like a complete diversion as to what the fuck was going on with the story. So, what do you want to give part 8? I'm leaning towards C tier.
Yeah,
honestly.
I would definitely say C tier.
Yeah, this is one of my least, if not my least favorite of the entire series.
Yeah,
that's going to be arguable with some of these last ones, which I think we can probably breeze through them. A couple of these ain't worth. Plus, I've already covered Freddy vs. Jason on the Nightmare on Elm Street podcast.
Sure.
So I don't know if we necessarily need to go too in depth.
Okay, so why don't we just dig right into Jason Goes to Hell then?
Yeah, let's go into Jason Goes to Hell, which is the first one I ever saw in the theater.
Okay.
It came out in 1993. My brother Shane and I went and saw it in the theater. I was super jacked because this movie is super fucking gory.
Yeah.
Great makeup effects.
Yeah.
Silly as fuck plot line.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you have the beginning of it where it's just, you know, the government is plotting against him. It's like, what the fuck? Okay. And they blow him up. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, you got the FBI, a government agency, trying to trick Jason so they can blow him up with fucking bombs and shit. And then it turns into basically like a body jumping movie.
Yeah.
Jason's not in the vast majority of it. You have a slug that goes between different bodies. And
the Necronomicon pops up in the film. So it's a blatant, like, weird reference to the Evil Dead at some point for some weird reason,
because it's made by New Line Cinema.
Yeah, well, yeah, New Line got the rights.
Reference comes up.
At the end of it,
but it has. I'm really conflicted about this one because it in one hand, it has good production value, great gore.
Sure.
The acting isn't horrible.
Yeah, but you can definitely tell that the actors in this film knew what they were getting into,
Absolutely.
and we're just like, let's just run with it. Like, and the guy who directed, like you said, he was a fan, and he read the script and said, okay.
Well, I
He's
believe
like,
he wrote it. I
no,
believe he was part of that creative team
oh,
that put
was
this
he?
thing together. Yeah, and
Because I know that Cunningham came back. New Line got the rights to it, and they brought Sean Cunningham back as a producer or like an executive producer. And let's see, no, he was no, it was Jay Hughley and Dean Laurie who wrote
that
this
wrote it.
screenplay. Yeah,
Okay,
Dana
okay.
Marcus was but Cunningham came back as a producer, so Cunningham probably had a lot more to say with this film than you know up until the first film, because like after the first film he kind of didn't write his names off, but like he didn't wipe his hands from it, but he definitely was like he had no say in what was going on from after one.
Yeah.
So him kind of coming in and kind of like, okay, like let's completely mess with the whole history and the lineage of it, like what can you come up with? And even the guys who probably wrote this film originally probably weren't the first people to kind of get a hack at it. That's the great thing about film production is that writers, not always the same people who were the last writers and the first writers of a
Right.
film.
So that comes into play when we talk about Freddy versus Jason. That thing was development hell for fucking decades.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's originally when this film ends, when Jason finally gets killed. You have that whole reveal at the very end where Freddy's hand comes up and takes the mask and brings it down to hell. And you're like, holy shit. And that was the one thing I remember when people saw this in the theater, and I didn't get to see it because my parents were very kind of like, no, you can't go to, even though we had a nice United Artists Theater like right down the block from us. Anything was like too scary. My parents would not let me like go see it. I had to wait pretty much until I came in on home video and like witness it around my cousins. But like when that came out, it was like a big thing. Like everybody was like, oh my god, they're gonna make a freaking Freddy versus Jason film. It's gonna be the best freaking thing ever. And like, and then people making shit up because they like, because God knows what, right? And then that Freddy versus Jason would come out, more than a decade later, and it's like
really got it. Well,
yeah.
There's so much behind that Freddy versus Jason movie that so much bureaucracy, so much fucking nonsense. We're trying to get rights because I mean, at that point when that movie finally got made, everyone that was originally part of Friday the 13th, and this would hamper it going forward to this day, just trying to get their fucking hands in that money jar.
Yep.
And it's just fucked everything up for the fans. We could have been at like Friday the 13th 26 at this point.
Probably, yeah.
And not to be. So Jason Goes to Hell to me reeks of a script that was laying around that they shoved Jason on, like all those fucking Hellraiser movies.
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
And while when I first watched it when I was younger, I really, really liked it. I don't think it's aging particularly very
well. No, not at all.
And it's not a movie of the series that I really ever pop in unless I'm watching the entire series.
Yeah, it's very much if it was on TV, that's when I'd watch it. Like
absolutely.
When AMC would do their Monster Fest and stuff like that during Halloween time, if that was playing and it was just and the TV was on, that's when I'd kind of pop my head in and be like, oh, okay, it's Goes to Hell. It's like, all right, I'll watch for a couple minutes, and it's like, yeah, and just kind of go back and do what I'm doing. Yeah, I was never a huge fan of it. Like when I did see it on VHS, I was like, like really, this is the film everybody was like losing their shit about. And like I saw the ending, I was like, oh, that would be cool if that ever happens.
Yeah, if it ever happens, right? But
yeah,
the scene that sells this movie for me, and if there's anything that I ever rewatch, it's the diner sequence.
Sure.
Where Jason's jumping between multiple bodies and everyone just gets fucking annihilated.
Yeah.
In very grotesque fashion. If you see the unrated cut, it is amazing. I absolutely fucking recommend that. I give this solid B tier because I don't think it's C tier.
Okay.
I don't think it's
it's middle of the road. It's very middle of the road. Yeah, I would agree with you there.
There's stuff about it that I like, and I don't think it's worse than 8 or 3 or on the level of that. I think it's like right along line with part 7. What do you think?
Sure. I definitely say that like I said, it's like Seven's another film where if it's on TV, I'll watch like parts of it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit there and waste my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pop part 3 or part 8 in.
No.
That's just
No,
not, I mean, they're not awful, but it's just not something I'm going to really pop.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Jason X, which is a very divisive film, and I have a feeling you and I are going to disagree about this.
And like, I like the director, who's James Isaac, who directed the horror show House 3. He's a decent horror director, right? But like, and I like the script of this film, and I like, the acting is kind of wonky, right? There's some fun stuff to it, but like, it's definitely like, okay, we've run out of things to do in this.
It's very direct to video in its presentation, in the acting, and in the script, in the cheapness of the sets,
and
like
the fact that
that are going on.
We're on a spaceship the whole time, and it just looks like, it just looks so like
cheap. It looks like fucking. It looks like Star Trek. Like not Next Generation, but like Deep Space Nine or Babylon 5 or something like that.
I've seen some like independent films where there's like short films where you can clearly see that they were using styrofoam from like to go containers that look better than the ship that they're freaking on in this. And there's some, I like the cameos. I like Cronenberg popping up in the beginning of the film. I think that's pretty funny. And like, I like the whole first scene when he does get revived and he shoves that woman's head in the nitroglycerin and slams her head off the corner of the table.
So good.
Like, that's cool. And the fact that you have another, like you have a robot as one of the crew members, because this was a big thing back then. Like, we're going to have science fiction movies and we're going to have them on the ship and we're going to have like a robot with us because they're very aliens, right? Or very alien.
Which is totally what they're ripping off with.
Right. And it's got to be a sexy looking a robot. And like, and there's all this innuendo between her and one of the other, human counterparts, especially after she loses her body and it's just her head.
Well, and her nipples. Remember, she loses her nipples.
Right. And it's just like, like, and I know the guy who wrote this, he also wrote the My Bloody Valentine remake, and it's like, I
didn't really like that one.
I hate that. I hate that remake.
Another 3D fucking movie.
Yeah, that's an awful. Like, but like, there's certain, and like when we go to the VR sequences when they're trying to stop him, and they put up the kind of like the hologram of the camp. Yeah, and the two girls are like, we're
the sleeping bag kill, and
and you get that absurd sleeping bag kill with the two chicks. It's it all ends with him pretty much being shoved out the friggin' airlock. And it's like, okay.
One of the kills that disappointed me the most in this movie, and it could have been really fucking cool, was when that one chick gets sucked through the grate.
Yeah,
that could have been so fucking gross and so over the top.
But they just didn't have.
It is just like a hard cut.
Yeah, you don't get that. It would have been really awesome. Like, you get that for like the Alien Resurrection. At the end of that film, you get that where it's like, oh, this is exactly what I was thinking of. Like when you get the mutant alien getting sucked through the little hole.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, that would have been so cool to watch.
Just turns into goo and just shit flying all over space.
It's like, oh, and like I love the way he looks at the beginning of the film. Like, I like the whole kind of like still gnarly Jason. When it becomes Uber Jason, I'm like, like, I understand why, because they actually do a good chance of destroying him.
Yeah.
Right. But they have to. We can't just be like, all right, well, like, we've destroyed him. We're about halfway through the film. What are we going to do?
What's going to happen, right?
It's like, oh, there's nanotechnology, and the nanotechnology doesn't know any better. And it's like, and it just, he's sitting on the slab, and they decide to just rebuild him, and they make him worse. Like, and it's like, and like, I just don't like. I don't like the way the mask looks on him in the Uber Jason's look, and the fact that it's much more like, it's robot compared to human.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know.
I fucking love it, dude. Yeah, I've always fucking loved it. I think it's fucking. Well, this is obviously
it's silly. It's
the goofiest movie of the series. This is like Leprechaun 3 in space. This is just like, it knows what it is.
Yeah,
it's unapologetic about it.
Mm-hmm.
The fucking digital 3D effects are
my God.
awful. They are fucking like
especially
just
when they
dog
show the ship in space. It's like, oh my god, this is not aged well at all.
Oh no, it's fucking dog. They should have just used fucking miniatures.
Right,
There's
right.
no reason to
But
have
they didn't have to. They didn't
shit
want to spend the
3D
money
model.
on it, and it was just like, well, 3D is the whole big thing, so we'll just do it in 3D. And it's like, no, you shouldn't. No,
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 that
no,
fucking
no.
like the nanobots
Mhm.
are so terrible to look at.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Not good at all. But I agree with Hatch in the chat. X is a fun movie. That's why I will fight to put this B tier.
Oh god. I'd say
What
more.
are you saying this is going to be dog shit?
No, I say more C tier than B tier.
You think
but-
this is C tier?
Maybe like right in the middle then. If it's B or C, I think it's kind of like it because Inkling's that thing where it's like I'm not gonna sit there and waste my time seeing it. Right? I'm not like unless it's on television or somebody's watching it, I'm not gonna sit there and go, okay, I need to watch Jason X.
Unless it's a group of people. See, that's the
Right.
only way I
Yeah,
really
like
watch this one anymore.
if you have a group of people who've never seen it and they want a goofy time,
Yeah.
because but like it's a film that like at least like like I said with like Jason Goes to Hell or like with the other one in this in our B tier number 7, I at least would like if they're on TV, I'm going to keep the television on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If this is playing on the TV, I may change it. I may watch it for a couple of minutes, be like, oh, it's Jason X, and then try to find something else.
You're kind of selling me in that. If we think about it in that way, and I think Kim's been bringing this up a lot in the chat, where in my heart this is S tier because I think it's so fucking hilarious and funny, but for real, it's more like B or C tier, and I'm starting to lean towards C tier because I don't really watch it at all anymore. When it first came out, I was younger and I just thought it was goofy and stupid, and I watched it like a lot.
Sure.
Now I couldn't really be fucked with watching this thing. It's kind of a chore to watch.
Yeah, it is
because it hasn't aged particularly.
No.
So
like I feel bad that the guy who wrote this and wrote the My Bloody Valentine, it was a couple of years ago. He put out an article like that he was living in his car. I was like, oh, that sucks. That sucks. Like I'm really bad. I feel bad for you, but like I don't. That's pretty much it. Like, oh man, like yeah, but so like I don't know. I'd definitely say more C tier than anything else. Like it's definitely a film. It's definitely a film where it's like I'm like I can just kind of completely overlook it. And like I was going through this. I was like, wait, 9 Freddy versus Jason. No, there's a movie in between. Isn't there 10? Like what the hell's the 10? I totally forget because Jason X, fucking
yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that fucking movie.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards like B minus. Like it's in between these two, so I'm gonna put it the last one on B tier.
Okay.
And we'll just consider. I mean,
yeah, it's like dead set in the middle of B and C. It's like
it's enjoyable. Like if you watch it one time, you're gonna get a lot of fucking yucks out of it. Right. I don't think it has legs to be a movie to sit and continually watch.
No.
Oh, and the last two movies, and I think we can kind of like these are the ones we can kind of crank through because honestly, I don't have a lot of good things to say about either of them. Freddy versus Jason. Ugh. When I first saw this at the movie theater, I saw it in the perfect setting. Opening night, the theater was packed. Everybody was super jacked. And when the Freddy vs. Jason stuff happened, and it was fucking like wrestling, it was like a wrestling match. It was like everyone was jumping out of their seats, cheering, yelling, and screaming. It was a great vibe.
Yeah.
The moment you watched it at home, that shit went away. The moment you said you like watched like it more than like 2 times.
Yeah.
This movie, I'm close to saying it's dog shit.
I can kind of agree with that because you can definitely tell that the people who wrote this were kind of like there's like this weird like Jay Muse character in there, like the pothead kid.
So cringy.
And like what's her name? Catherine Isabel's in the film. Like so, and like she's fine. I always like her as an actress, regardless of what she's in.
Yeah.
But like you and then like when the film came out on DVD, I remember watching all the special features for it. and watching like the making of and like talk and like was it Ronnie Yu, I think, right? He
Yep.
directed this.
Yep.
And he just felt like a director who was like, like he was at the time was a name. People
Well, because
knew.
he had just made Bride of Chucky.
Yeah, and
He was
Bride of
just
Chucky
finally
was
crossing over to the United States.
Yeah, and Bride of Chucky was a big thing, and a lot of people like that film. And I'm not against that film. I think it's it's that kind of transitional film from the traditional what Chucky was to the more kind of stuff that we know now of what Chucky is, like especially with everything that the TV series and the other kind of directive video films that have come out in the last handful of years. And that kind of helped like change that whole series and make it a much more entertainable thing than kind of just being kind of constantly fucking gnarly, killer doll. Like there's a lot more comedy in those films. But anyway,
and it changed that series for the better in my mind.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you there because I liked what they've done with the with the Bride of Chucky and the Cult of Chucky and all the stuff they've been doing the last couple of years. But with this film, he kind of tried to take that same aspect of kind of like, let's work with a character that's kind of well known and put it on its head, or these two characters, put them on their head, like cockeye them, and it falls flat.
It falls flat mostly because this reeks of a movie where these are two cultural touchstones, like pop culture icons.
Yeah.
It's weird to say that, but they're in the zeitgeist in a way that you don't even need to know anything about their backstories or anything. You just know who they are. Like you could go to a rando normie. They're going to know who Freddy Krueger is.
Yeah.
At least the image. They're going to know who Jason Voorhees is. Just the image. And this movie reeks of somebody that hadn't sat and watched any of the movies, decided to just, these are the things that I had heard about these characters.
Yeah.
And wrote a story not getting anything barely right about it.
Yeah.
Like the Freddy character feels off. Fucking Jason, the backstory of him like being afraid of water. Like, what the fuck is that?
It makes no sense, man.
It's
I know.
stupid.
Like I like England in this in this version of Freddy and Jason. Freddy.
Freddy.
And I like his version of it because it definitely takes like, you can definitely tell it's like, they knew what to do with him. They knew what to do with Krueger, and they just couldn't figure out what to do with Jason because it's like, but they could have like, I like the fact that they brought back what's her face. God, I can't remember her name. Who played the mother?
Nope, this was not the original mother.
Oh no, okay, you're right. No, nope. I'm thinking about it. Yeah, nope. But they brought back, they brought back that character, and they made Freddy kind of manipulate him through his mother. Kind of just trying to working on his, the things. But like, yes, the water thing just doesn't make any sense. Like, there's this weird barrier, right? And it's like, why? Like, yes, I understand he was drowned in the first film. Yes, but like, why would he be afraid of it? Like, he's an unstoppable killing machine.
And arguably in like half the movies, he lives in water.
Right. And it's like, I can understand you using Freddy to kind of manipulate Jason to do what Freddy. Like, I like the concept, like that Freddy has gone dormant. The kids have all forgotten who he is, right? And you still have Jason out there because that character is a revenant. He's still roaming the woods. He's still going out there killing people when you get into his area, right?
Yep.
And Freddy's gone dormant because people have forgotten about him because he's a dream demon. You have to.
That's the whole idea of Freddy, right? The only way he has power is to be in the consciousness of people.
Yeah, the fear that that people have of him keeps him alive.
Yep.
Right, and it's like, okay, so that's cool. That's a cool concept. But then him manipulating Jason with his mother to kind of force him to kind of like that's the thing. Like that's where it kind of for me it kind of really starts to fall apart because like. I can understand why, but then like Jason's the one killing people and no one's thinking of Freddy still. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I understand why he's doing this. Like it would be nice if they kind of like, they had one kid who was still fearful of the whole concept of Freddy Krueger. Right. And he was, and this is why Freddy was still somewhat, I guess in the void, You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But no one
or
believed that kid anymore. Like he was, the local, local crazies parent. The child of the local crazies and stuff like that.
yeah.
But like they just, it just
It tries too hard.
no,
Like
yeah,
it's like everything about it just it tries way too hard. The
mm-hmm.
script is there's so many versions of this script out there that
Yeah,
was produced. And when you got to finally this was the one they decided
mm-hmm.
on,
Yeah,
you kind of scratch your head like, man, they didn't fucking have a clue.
no,
Like they didn't know what the fuck was going on. The positive of this movie for me,
mm-hmm.
and Mikey K says Cronenberg owns in this movie, not to be that. Well, actually, guy, Cronenberg was in part 10. He was
10,
in the
yeah,
beginning of Jason X,
yeah,
and that was one of the best scenes in the movie. Because
yes,
Cronenberg's always a fucking welcome
mm-hmm.
addition to any fucking movie. My favorite Cronenberg role, not to get derailed, is
Yeah,
fucking Nightbreed.
yeah.
God damn. Oh, I love that movie. Anyways, let's get back to this piece of shit because I got to go to sleep at some point. I'm an old fucking man.
Yeah, I hear you.
Freddy vs. Jason. Robert Englund owns this movie.
Yeah,
This version of Freddy is a combination of the Goofy Freddy
mm-hmm.
and the horror Freddy.
Definitely.
Like there is a good he plays this really well, and when it gets dark, it's dark. But everything else about this movie is just dog shit.
Yeah.
So I'm like caught between. I mean the fucking dialogue, like that whole sequence. Oh, I want to move past this, but I gotta say that whole sequence with Catherine Isabel and the fucking party and all that shit is just so hard to watch.
Right.
The lead actress that is the main one, the final girl, is just dog shit in this movie.
What's her name? The Destiny Child actress. I can't remember.
Oh yeah, I mean she's okay.
Yeah,
for
but
what
she's
given, but
but then you have like that whole sequence, which just like I hate that. Like I hated it when I saw it in the theater. And the whole where she kind of goes after Freddy and Freddy, and she kind of calls him the slur, and you're like, really? Did we need that? Like I understand you're trying to get him to kind of divert from what he's doing and kind of go after her, but it's like,
yeah,
like you didn't need that. Even then, it was still like it was a term where it's just like you didn't need to use that. Like
no, it's not aging well.
No, it doesn't. And but like and then the film that film ends in such a weird like
nobody wins.
Yeah, nobody
wins.
And it's like and then the history of what they were trying to do for the sequel, like they're going to bring in, they wanted to do
Ash,
they wanted to bring Ash,
whatever it was.
And it ended up, they never could get it together. They never could get the contracts properly. There is a screenplay. They ended up making it into a comic, which actually I think is pretty good. The first comic anyway, not the continuing on stuff with the whole series just kind of sucks. But like that first comic, which was based on the screenplay, was pretty fun. And that's actually not a bad idea. Like when you read that original comic, it's like, yes, this would have been great. And like it totally completely diverts everything that was in the film. And it's like okay.
This movie, I think you bring up a good point. I think this movie would have worked way better as a comic book instead of a movie. Yeah. I'm leaning between C and dog shit.
Yeah, I would put dog shit. I mean, I didn't think we were gonna have one, but
this is my least favorite of the entire series.
Yeah,
it just doesn't age well, and it like you said, there's homophobic slurs in this movie which haven't particularly aged very well. They should have never been included, but that's just a sign of the time. The acting in dialogue is so fucking cringe that it's hard.
Yeah,
really hard to watch this movie. So
dog
shit. Let's move on to our final movie, and then we can both go to fucking sleep. You can get back to making out with your lady friend in the kitchen there.
She's gonna kill me.
Absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
I don't edit these podcasts anymore, just so
I know. I heard your number 0 this morning, so I know.
It's not going to happen anymore. Anyway, so Friday the 13th, the remake, the Michael Bay Platinum Dunes remake of this movie, Marcus Nispel, who had what was the movie? He had done the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, which I think is a piece of dog shit
Yeah.
for various reasons. A lot of people
Mhm.
seem to like that movie. It's beautiful. He's got a great eye for visuals, but
Sure.
the movies are just dog shit.
Yeah.
And the Friday the 13th remake, for my buck,
Yeah.
the first, like the opening sequence until the title hit is perfect.
Sure. The whole kind of like we'll make it some weird kind of sequel to the original film. It's like, okay,
it's perfect. Yeah. And then after that is just a bunch of pretty people getting together like it's a CW fucking show.
Sure. Like
and then Jason's fucking like the Leatherface family, where he's got underground tunnels and all sorts of other fucking nonsense and bullshit.
It's this whole thing where it's like, where you have like these two couples camping, and they've gone out there because they think that there's pot somewhere buried, like been planted, and it's like, oh, for fuck's sakes.
All of it just reeks of that whole like mid to late 2000s, like everyone's got to be super attractive. Nobody in any of these movies were like, there was always ugly people in these fucking movies.
Average
not
people,
one to be found.
Not just ugly people, just like average, like everyday people. And
just
it's like,
people.
Yeah.
These are models.
And it just feels like, and like, I don't mind Derek Mears?
Yeah.
As Freddy, like,
or it's Jason. He's awesome.
I like the look of the character. I like the fact that he's just hulking. Like, it's actually the kind of what, like, Kane Hodder couldn't do because of his height restriction.
Yeah.
But you have this guy who's like almost 7 foot tall. He's a lumbering, huge monster of a dude, and it's like, I can totally see that. It's like it's the idea and the idea and the mindset of what that character is out of all the series, right? But it's like, in the fact, the opening sequence between the credits and stuff like that, where we get like this weird rehash of the first film, and then it just kind of is just like this boilerplate, like, kids come out here, they're told they shouldn't be out here, they get, they all get killed but one gets kidnapped, and then it becomes like the sister of that girl comes out here to try to figure out what's going on and where she is. And you have, the whole underground tunnel system, which I guess is a kind of a take of like from 3, I guess you can say, because he has all like, those, 2 or 3 where he has the dilapidated, houses where, the old cabins where his mother's head is put there and stuff like that.
But he's not an he's shown as more of like,
I
mean, this isn't going to be a piece of term, but like a mongoloid. He's not. He's kind of like mutated and not very smart.
And in this film, he's like a weird prepper. Like it's
like a doomsday prepper.
Yeah, and he's not. He's not. It's not. There's no reason for him. Like, yes, we get the introduction that his mother was killed, but then it feels like his mother is out there, believing that he's dead. Like, it's like it doesn't, it makes sense, but it kind of completely wipes itself clean from that first 10 minutes. And it's like we have a whole different story. We had this concept and we added to it, but then we kind of just completely lost interest. And it's just like, I don't know.
It to me, again, like his Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake,
right?
Too slick for its own fucking good. It has some great kills in it, admittedly,
right?
And Derek Mears is amazing as Jason, but I do not like this movie.
No,
I've tried watching it multiple times, including with a bunch of people, and it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me at all. It doesn't feel like a Friday the 13th film. It again feels like the idea somebody has of what a Friday the 13th film is.
Yeah.
The only part of this movie that feels like a Friday the 13th film is the beginning section until the title hit.
Yeah.
After that point, fuck it.
Right.
It is what it is. It's the fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake all over again. I would put this C tier.
Okay.
I don't think it's awful.
No.
In any ways, but it's not a movie I ever watch.
No,
I don't particularly like it.
I saw it in the theater and I was just like, no, I don't ever see this again. And I haven't seen it since. I just kind of when I was doing today was just pretty much like rehashing like reading stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that was bad.
Yeah,
So
good luck trying to rewatch this.
no,
Like if you
like,
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't
like even like
recommend it at
yeah,
all.
anything Marcus Niswell has done, yeah, it's beautiful to look at. Like he's got an eye for it, but it's just I don't know, he just goes for the buck, and it's like I don't know, man. Like yeah,
I
that
don't
text
even think it's really his problem.
right.
I think a lot of it has to do with like the people that are. Oh my god, all my shit is falling apart back here. It's getting to that point of the night, folks.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is he's tied to like the Platinum Dunes aesthetic.
Yeah,
Is like the CW aesthetic,
sure. Yeah.
and that reference may fall flat on any of the like the Zoomers that are watching or anything. Did I say that right? I sound like a fucking old.
I don't know, man. Your guess is as good as mine.
Well, it just reeks of all these people are models,
Yeah.
and this has to be flashy
Mhm.
and a lot of jump scares, and
Sure.
it just doesn't fucking work for me in any way. So here's our tier list, the ultimate tier
Wow.
list of Friday the 13th films. Kim in the chat asks, she's curious whether any of us have watched the fan films.
Yeah.
Some are pretty great. I've
Can we-
watched quite a number of them, actually.
We've watched for a couple of the 30 Days of Horror. We've done a couple of them. At least the Never Hack Alone ones. I've watched
Oh yeah,
the
I've
first two of
watched
those.
both of those. Yeah, I've
And I know
watched both of those.
they're working on a third one. So I would like to see that. And I don't mind those ones. I like the fact that they kind of keep it to the kind of the history of the first of those original films.
Yeah, and I even though the Jason they have is kind of goofy, and I think it's the
Yeah.
director.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
the director
Mhm.
plays Jason, and it just he doesn't really work well. But the tone,
But the tone and the tone and
it's
the way
great.
it's put together is really great. Yeah, and the fact
Yeah.
that he brought he brought Tommy Jarvis back in the second one, as kind of like as kind of
The
like
paramedic.
the paramedic, and when I saw him, I was like, finally, someone's actually going to do what I've been wanting to do for
Yep.
years, and like it just kind of it cuts because the next one is supposed to be that kind of that whole idea of what. And like, there's some of them that are a little goofy, yes. But I think the Never Hike Alone ones are probably the best ones that have come out in the last handful of years.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of like, if we ignore
Yeah,
all of these, and there was a fan film
yeah,
tier list,
hmm
they would be S tier
Sure.
when you're talking about fan films.
Yeah.
They're the only ones that are worth a pinch of shit.
hmm
Otherwise, like there was one I watched, and I don't want to get too into fucking the fan films too much, but there was
Sure.
one where Jason's dad was like controlling him and some shit. I fucking barely could make it through that movie.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And I know there are fans out there of those movies, and I'm glad the idea, because you remember like a few years ago there were a lot of Kickstarters for these fan films.
Yeah.
Like people were trying to really make money off of these fan films
Well,
in some way.
the thing is, they really couldn't, but like, they wanted to divert the cost because these things do cost a lot of money. Like from making films that like even if it's your own kind of creative energy doing it, writing it, directing it, getting the cast together, that's a lot of money, right? Especially if it's low budget, it's still a good amount of your time.
Everything costs money with making
So it's like
films.
I can understand them putting out a Kickstarter, kind of just getting the money to like, so they're not sitting there like maxing out their credit cards, and like it's going to go out there to free because they can't sell a disc, with this product on it because they'll automatically get sued by New Line or Paramount or whoever the hell owns it right now. It's just like that's the thing. Like, I totally understand that, but like, yeah, like because it's smarter now. Like people know how to do that shit now. It's like back 10, 15 years ago, you just went out with your friends and somebody had the gear to make, and look kind of big enough to be a Jason and kind of run around and kill your friends.
Right. Well, the only thing I'll give credit to with a lot of these fan films is that this is their springboard to making their own stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. Because now with the internet, there's an avenue with YouTube to be able to put these out there and people can actually see, and this can be like a visual resume.
Yeah.
That could springboard you into other projects.
And like, especially with the Never Hike Alone ones, that first one, springboarded him. Kid. Yeah, made him, and when he made the second one, he was able to get people who were affiliated with the series to come on board, even though it's a small cameo at the end of the film. It's still like, okay, and we were expecting him to pay him. Yeah, and they paid him to do it, and that's the thing. It's like, and you get more and more people going, hey, you can take this seriously. Yes, you can't freaking actually make money off the project, but like you can. And there are a couple of directors who have made fan films who have gone on to make legitimate films, like the guy who directed Prey from like 2 years ago, the Predator film. He started making fan films when he started out, and he's gone on to make 2 or 3 somewhat good films. And that's a whole nother story and a whole nother discussion. But you know what I mean? Like it gets the foot in the door. You know what I mean? So
and I don't mean to denigrate any of the films. No, I mean every film takes an army, and it's like nobody. I hate saying people are lazy when they make films, and we talk about this a lot on my Patreon podcast, Worst Movies Ever.
Yeah.
But as somebody that's been associated with films, you can see when people are cutting corners.
Right.
You can when things were just done because they just decided we don't have to focus on this.
Definitely.
But with fan films, that most people that do fan films are doing them for the right reasons.
Yeah, definitely.
So I can't really. They are in their own space, but in this space of the films that are proper, this is our tier list, people. Whether or not you agree with it, I don't fucking care. Because this is the ultimate one. You better recognize that this is the order now. This is the official order going forward in perpetuity for the rest of all time.
Yeah.
And I finally did it, Vaughn.
Nice.
We finally did it. We finally did Friday the 13th here on Astro Radio Z. It only took 11 fucking years.
Yeah. 2.5 hours. Yeah.
2.5 hours. And all my shit is broken now because I keep walking into it or keep bumping into it. So I don't have anything left. So having said that, thanks for coming on. It's been a number of years.
Sure.
We've done a podcast together on Astro Radio Z now.
Well, your podcast, during your kind of weird like time in the wilderness when you were doing the podcast, I did contribute to the show. But yes, right. We did the whole Andy Milligan, which broke you, and we had to come back. You had to take a year off in the middle of all that and come back.
I got to tell you, there was a guy on my episode yesterday, and I think you might have heard it, where he said that Art Milligan episodes were his Watergate tapes.
I heard that. Yeah, that was great. That was a fantastic comment.
I was waiting to hear your response.
I was like, that's just great. I was like, all right, yeah. And it's like, and I told my girlfriend about this. I was explaining about I was doing this, and I was like, yeah, I made him watch all of these, these films by Andy Milligan, one of my favorite directors, and he can't fucking stand him, but he sat there for a year and a half and watched every one of them. We talked about every film.
After I had hung up the podcast, I ended the podcast.
Yeah, you ended the podcast. We did like 8 months. You ended the podcast again and brought back and didn't finish the rest of this madness. I'm like, I don't feel like, I should be patting myself on the back for one, resurrecting Astro Radio Z, and two, putting you in a friggin' home for 6 months to 8 months, and then bringing you back.
It wasn't that bad. I was still, surviving. It wasn't like the end of the world.
When you were like, fuck, no more podcasts. I'm done.
Well, hey, I was the dummy who decided to say, hey, guys, do you want to watch Andy Milligan movies?
Yeah, and you expected you have like, and our friend Evan, who was part of those shows, you expected him to be like, okay, like maybe he'll side with me. And Evan was on his own part of the wilderness, kind of having his own experience with these films, which is fantastic. It's probably one of the best things I've done in the 15 years I've been podcasting, is that whole chunk of podcasts being on here.
You know what? There's a lot of fans out there for those Andy Milligan episodes, and the only way that you can listen to them now, folks, is either on my Patreon or the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is the only place where that stuff lives at this point now, but they're edited. YouTube really like that. YouTube list isn't comprehensive because YouTube really likes to block and edit and make and force me to do stuff to those episodes. So if you want to listen to all those, go over to patreon.com/Astro Radio Z. Give us a few schmeckles and you'll get those podcasts in full.
And so yeah, you want me to plug so we can get the hell out of here?
This is the portion of the show where you, my guest, shamelessly shield the fuck out of you. And Vaughn, I gotta say, you and I have been talking for a long time about finishing up this Shaft retrospective on your podcast, and you even went to the extent of like buying and sending me the goddamn Shaft TV movies.
Yep.
Admittedly, I've only watched one of them.
I've watched about 3 of them, but I would like to do them at some point because now that it seems like you're much more in the hilt of actually doing podcasts nowadays. So so it's much more kind of like, okay, let's start putting out the little inklings of like maybe getting you on the show. And there's a lot of episodes, so it's kind of it's a big of a tough. But
it's only a 3-episode. The way we had plotted it out is only a 3-episode arc, right? It was we did the first 3 movies, then the TV movies, and then
the Samuel L. Jackson films. But like because there's some, what is it, like 10, I think, or 10 or 12 of those TV movies. Well, we can kind of, we'll talk about that. We'll figure that out when we get there.
I will watch all of them.
Yeah, I will too. But like
we can't do that podcast and just skim through them. We gotta watch.
Yeah, we have to watch all of them. So the podcast he's talking about, I've been running this for now 15 years. It's called Motion Picture Massacre. It's kind of what Derek does, but Derek has a tendency to kind of also talk about the high tier stuff like we're doing tonight. I like digging deep into the depths of exploitation, horror, drive-through cinema, the kind of more harder to find stuff. And it's not really hard to find nowadays because there's so many boutique labels putting shit out. But I'm kind of that guy that you knew that would watch weird shit and then tell you about it. That's kind of how I think about this podcast. That's how it's always been. It's usually about twice a month. Occasionally an affiliate podcast called the Douchecast 5K gets put in the feed every once in a while to kind of mess with people. So that can be found at motionpicturemassacre.wordpress.com. I also I'm also a co-host for a Westerns podcast, which is a monthly podcast that I do with my friend Stephen Thompson over on his website, jafmp.com. That podcast is called Wanted Alive, but Preferably Dead, where we pick every other month. One of us gets a choice. Stephen usually picks more modern and kind of American Westerns. I usually go for the more European and spaghetti Westerns. And then I also have a Patreon. I know, fucking shocking, right? But
after so many fucking years of you yelling at every last motherfucker that had a Patreon, and then I nearly had a heart attack when you fucking subscribed to my Patreon just because of the goddamn Worst Movies Ever podcast.
Yes. Well, no, yes, the Worst Movies Ever, because it allowed to torture you, and I still have a bunch of films on there. And if I can torture my friends in any way, please give me the chance.
The Andy Milligan episodes weren't enough for you. You had to continue on.
No, look at you when you look in that list, there's still that 3-hour Brain Robbers from Outer Space film that you got to watch at some point.
Looking forward to it. I'm so not looking forward to it. At this point, there's like almost 70 to 80 movies on that list. We're going to be going forever.
I added something to that list, or at least I changed some of the films I picked and like put new links to like where you can find them because
sure. Well, some of them are just popping up on Tubi now.
Yeah, that's what I did. I started finding them on Tubi and just started putting the links for Tubi in there. And the show I do is on Patreon is called Motion Picture Massacre Presents. It's kind of a end all be all for like my other projects and other ideas. Right now, I'm doing a show called The Night Court Files, where I'm reviewing 2 episodes of the 1984 to 1992 TV series Night Court. And I'm in the inklings of the 2nd season right now. You can get that for $1, and that's all I ever ask.
And if you're fans of Night Court, you do a great job going through them all. You're pretty like thorough with what's going on, and because it's a continuing thing, it's building on itself now with being able to cross-reference I enjoy it. I like it.
It's an interesting concept because there's enough people that I follow and I'm friends with that do TV podcasts, and I didn't want to put that out there for the masses where it would just kind of get inklinged out. I want to, if you're willing to take the chance, you can sit there, and it's the same kind of things I do for every other podcast. It's weirdly researched. It's very matter of fact. I just have a fun time doing it. It's only a monthly show. Because Patreon's only it's an end all be all. I'm trying to do other projects within there to kind of put stuff out, but I want to mainly focus right now on the Night Court Files. So yeah, and you can find that at patreon.com/Motion Picture Massacre Presents. So,
okay,
yeah,
and that's good to know.
And that's all.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it for now.
Not as bad as if I have Mark the Movie Man on here, and that'll go on for like 30 minutes.
Yeah,
I love you, Mark. You like to chill though.
Yeah, definitely.
So, anyways, that's you guys know what's going on here. I've shilled my fucking Patreon a lot. You can go there. All the old episodes of Astro Radio Z now are living on fucking patreon.com. You can get my other podcast for $3 a month. You can get Worst Movies Ever, which is, as Vaughn had alluded to, everybody that's subscribed to, I believe it's like the $10 a month tier, gets to put movies on a list. It used to be lower than that, but the Patreon's always evolving at all points because I'm stupid and everything fluctuates. Why do you think we started Astro Radio Z over again? I am legitimately like the worst podcaster there is out there. I can't keep I don't even know why anybody subscribes or like follows this podcast anymore. I'm such a flake with this shit. But anyways, Worst Movies Ever is they all put these movies that they feel are the worst movies ever onto a list, and episode by episode, I just pick one randomly by a randomizer wheel, and we sit and go through them and determine whether or not they actually are. And not pissed. I didn't piss anywhere, but they rarely are the worst movies ever. So that's all I got. Next episode of Astro Radio Z is in 2 weeks is going to be, we're going to finally be talking about, because it finally came out, Subspecies 5 Blood Rise. Have you watched this yet, Vaughn?
No. Just amazed. I'm amazed he made another film besides some kind of like evil bong crap.
Andrew is back as Radu.
Oh wow.
And okay, so I don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
Don't, please.
I've watched a bunch of it.
Sure.
Ted Nicolau directs again.
Okay, cool.
Most of I don't think I forget what her name is now. The actress that was in like 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, that's the main love interest. I don't think she's in it, but at least it's a prequel and a sequel. Oh. Anders Hove is so old now.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it doesn't make any fucking sense.
Make people want to listen to the next episode.
Let me just tell you, it's goofy as fuck. And we're going to finally, because we did the Subspecies franchise episode a number of years ago on Astro Radio Z. So I figured we got to continue. And I'm looking at you, Mikey K. Don't say a fucking word. I'm not doing any more goddamn fucking Puppet Master movies on this fucking podcast. Nope. I know that we're like completionists. Fuck you. I ain't doing that shit. Ain't happening. Fuck those Puppet Master movies. Especially after the point we stopped. Yeah. Because those fucking, like, the Deadly 10 ones that came up, so fucking bad. Like that Blade one. Oh, that was fucking dog shit.
Yeah.
So fucking bad. But anyways, that's what we got coming in 2 weeks on Astro Radio Z again. Vaughn, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk soon again.
Sure.
Looking forward to that goddamn Shaft podcast.
Yeah, definitely need to do
it. Make that fucking happen, brother. So anyways, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the very active chats tonight. It was a good time. I'm glad we finally got this done. But Vaughn, say goodnight to all my peoples.
Good night, people.
Later, everybody.
Shit, man.